When we look out at the world, our eyes naturally fall upon the grand and the visible. Towering forests, sweeping oceans, mountains carved by time, and animals moving across the landscape all draw our attention. Yet, just beneath the surface of what we can see, there exists another world. It is a world that is hidden in plain sight, one that dwarfs the scale of all familiar forms of life. This is the world of microbes, the unseen majority of living beings that silently fill every corner of our planet. They are so small that most pass through existence unnoticed, invisible to the unaided eye. Yet they are abundant beyond measure. For every human on Earth, there are trillions of microbial companions, on our skin, in our mouths, and within our bodies. And beyond us, in soil, in oceans, and even in the thin air above mountains, microbes quietly reign as the most numerous inhabitants of the biosphere. The quiet reality is that microbes are not only abundant, they are dominant. When measured in total numbers, their presence is staggering. Estimates suggest that microbial cells outnumber the stars in the observable universe. If we were to gather all the bacteria, archaea, fungi, and other microscopic forms of life into a single mass, their combined weight would surpass that of every plant and animal. They are not a side story in the history of life, but its central theme. From the very beginning, billions of years ago, microbes were here first, and they have never left. They shape the air we breathe, the soil we walk upon, and the cycles of energy and matter that sustain all ecosystems. It is easy to forget them, because our senses are not tuned to their scale. Human vision evolved to detect larger forms, the faces of kin, the movements of predators, the ripe fruit on a distant branch. Microbes lie far beneath that range. To meet them, one must peer through the lens of a microscope, stepping into a hidden dimension where life operates at the scale of micrometers. Here, in droplets of water and specks of soil, teeming communities reveal themselves, bustling with activity and complexity. For centuries, this realm was unknown, and yet it quietly dictated the fate of Earth's surface. The first glimpses of this hidden majority came only a few hundred years ago, when early scientists like Antony van Leeuwenhoek trained crude lenses upon pond water and discovered what he called animalcules, tiny beings darting about, invisible to all who had never looked through glass. To those first observers, the discovery was astonishing, as though another world had been uncovered just beneath the familiar one. Yet the true scale of microbial abundance was still beyond imagination. Only with time, and with careful study, did it become clear that these tiny entities were not curiosities, but the foundation upon which visible life rests. To imagine the abundance of microbes, one might picture a single gram of soil, the amount that could sit comfortably on a spoon. Within that small portion, billions of microbial cells reside, forming intricate networks that communicate, compete, and cooperate. In the oceans, a single milliliter of seawater, barely a drop, may contain over 1 million bacteria and countless viruses, endlessly circulating through the currents. Even in the air, carried by winds and rising thermals, microbial cells drift invisibly, linking ecosystems that seem distant from one another. Everywhere, always, they are present. In many ways, the world of microbes feels eternal. They predate the animals and plants, and they will likely outlast them. Their lineage stretches back to the earliest chapters of life's story. When the Earth was young, its atmosphere harsh, and its oceans unstable. Somehow, in those ancient conditions, the first self-replicating cells emerged. They did not need eyes, or limbs, or even nervous systems. Instead, they carried the simple machinery of chemistry, encoded in fragile molecules, capable of turning raw materials into energy and growth. From these humble beginnings, the microbial world expanded, diversified, and filled the planet with countless variations. When we breathe, we partake in a gift given by microbes. The oxygen that fills our lungs is not a natural inheritance of Earth's atmosphere, but rather the product of ancient cyanobacteria, tiny architects who learned to capture sunlight and split water molecules, releasing oxygen as waste. Over vast spans of time, this oxygen accumulated, transforming the air from a suffocating mixture into a life-giving medium, allowing animals to evolve and flourish. Without microbes, there would be no forests, no birds, no humans. In a very real sense, the air itself is their creation. Microbes are also the great recyclers. In forests, fallen leaves, branches, and dead organisms are slowly broken down by communities of bacteria and fungi, reducing what once lived into the raw materials for new growth. Without this recycling, the world would quickly choke beneath layers of unprocessed debris. Instead, nutrients are returned to the soil, dissolved into rivers, and released into the atmosphere. In every ecosystem, microbes ensure continuity, silently tending to the cycles that allow life to persist. Though hidden, their influence is constant. They live in symbiosis with plants, helping roots draw in nitrogen and other vital elements. They coat the surfaces of corals, protecting them from disease while forming part of the intricate web of the reef. They thrive within the guts of animals, breaking down food into usable energy, allowing their hosts to survive on diets that would otherwise be impossible. In the human body, the trillions of microbes that make up the microbiome form an unseen organ, one that contributes to digestion, immunity, and even the subtle balance of emotions. We are not separate from microbes. We are walking ecosystems, deeply entwined with them, and still, for all their presence, they remain invisible to most people. Their world operates on scales of size and time that do not align with our own. A bacterial cell divides in minutes or hours, completing generations in the span of a single day. In that brief time, mutations accumulate, traits shift, and adaptation unfolds at a pace that outstrips the grander rhythms of animals and plants. Evolution for microbes is not a distant process measured in millennia, but a constant pulse shaping populations hour by hour. This rapid adaptability allows them to thrive in environments where few others can survive. If one wishes to seek resilience, it is in microbes that the truest examples can be found. Some endure searing heat near volcanic vents. Others live encased in Antarctic ice, and still others persist in the crushing pressures of the ocean's deepest trenches. There are microbes that consume sulfur, that breathe iron, that thrive in acid, and that withstand radiation that would destroy other forms of life. In every extreme, there is a microbe making a home, quietly demonstrating the flexibility of life itself. And so, as we begin our exploration of the hidden majority, it is important to soften our perspective, to imagine not only the visible world, but also the vast unseen one that supports it. Microbes are not distant curiosities studied only in laboratories. They are here, now, around us, and within us, forming the unseen architecture of existence. They are the quiet majority, unnoticed, yet indispensable. As you rest and listen, let the thought of this invisible abundance settle gently, a reminder that life is deeper and broader than what meets the eye, and that even in the silence, the smallest beings are at work, shaping the world in countless ways. 2. What microbes are. When we speak of microbes, we are really describing an entire universe of living forms that share one defining trait: their invisibility to the naked eye. They are organisms that exist on the smallest of scales, most often measured in micrometers, far below the threshold of what human eyes can perceive unaided. And yet, despite their minuteness, they are varied beyond measure, belonging to many distinct groups and filling nearly every ecological niche on Earth. To understand microbes is not to think of a single kind of creature, but to imagine an entire spectrum of life, simple in structure, yet endlessly inventive in how it adapts and thrives. Among the most familiar microbes are the bacteria. They are often pictured as simple, rod-shaped or spherical cells, each one carrying out its entire existence within a single microscopic compartment. Bacteria lack the complex internal structures that animals and plants possess. Their DNA floats freely inside the cell, not enclosed within a nucleus, and their energy-generating processes take place across their cell membranes. But to call them simple is to overlook their astonishing effectiveness. Bacteria have been found in every habitat humans have explored, from the deepest ocean sediments to the peaks of mountains, from the interiors of other living beings to the frozen soils of the tundra. Some bacteria produce energy by consuming sugars, others break down minerals, and still others capture sunlight in ways reminiscent of plants. Their forms are ancient, their lineages unbroken across billions of years, and their adaptability has allowed them to endure when so many other life forms have come and gone. Closely related to bacteria, though often overlooked, are the archaea. For many years, scientists thought archaea were simply another branch of bacteria, but as methods of studying them improved, it became clear that they are a domain of life unto themselves. Their cells resemble bacteria in size and simplicity, but their genetic machinery is surprisingly distinct. In some ways, archaea share features with the complex cells of plants and animals, suggesting that they hold a special place in the tree of life. Many archaea are extremophiles, flourishing in conditions that appear utterly inhospitable: boiling hot springs, hypersaline lakes, or acidic environments where few organisms could survive. The discovery of archaea revealed that life has many more strategies for survival than we once imagined, reminding us that microbial diversity extends into places far beyond our everyday experience. Not all microbes are prokaryotic, meaning without a nucleus. Some belong to the eukaryotes, the group that also includes animals, plants, and fungi. Within this category, certain unicellular eukaryotes are also considered microbes. These include protists, such as amoebae, ciliates, and microscopic algae. Unlike bacteria and archaea, these cells have nuclei that enclose their DNA, and they often possess other organelles, specialized structures that perform tasks like energy production, photosynthesis, or waste processing. Protists are highly diverse in form and function. Some, like the green algae, drift through ponds and oceans, capturing sunlight and forming the foundation of aquatic food chains. Others move with whip-like tails or hair-like cilia, hunting for smaller prey. Some are predators, others are photosynthesizers, and still others combine both strategies, showing the fluidity of life's possibilities at this scale. Then there are the fungi, often thought of in terms of mushrooms and molds visible to the naked eye. But many fungi are also microbial. Yeasts, for example, are single-celled fungi that play an essential role in fermentation, helping to produce bread, beer, and countless other foods and beverages. Microscopic fungal forms are also key decomposers, breaking down organic matter in soil and recycling nutrients into ecosystems. Though distinct from bacteria, fungi often share the same environments, coexisting and competing in ways that sustain the living fabric of Earth. Viruses, meanwhile, sit at the edges of what we consider life. They are not cells at all, but packages of genetic material, sometimes DNA, sometimes RNA, wrapped in protective protein coats. They cannot reproduce on their own. Instead, they must enter the cells of other organisms, hijacking their machinery to copy themselves. Some scientists argue that viruses are not truly alive, while others see them as integral participants in the story of life, blurring the boundary between living and non-living. What is beyond dispute is their abundance. In the world's oceans alone, viruses are present in astronomical numbers, infecting bacteria and plankton, constantly influencing the balance of ecosystems. Their influence extends into evolution itself, as they transfer genes between hosts, shaping genomes and driving adaptation across the tree of life. All of these groups, bacteria, archaea, protists, fungi, and viruses together, make up what we call microbes. Their diversity is not only taxonomic but also functional. They play roles in nearly every process that sustains the planet, generating oxygen, fixing nitrogen, decomposing organic material, and shaping the climate. They can be solitary cells drifting in water, or they can form vast, cooperative colonies that create structures visible to the human eye, such as the layered mats found in hot springs, or the slimy biofilms that coat rocks and streams. Some live freely in the environment, while others form intimate relationships with larger organisms, from plants and animals to humans themselves. The definition of microbes also invites us to reconsider what scale means in biology. Though small, they can exist in numbers so vast that they alter entire ecosystems. A bloom of algae in the ocean can change the color of the water for miles and influence global carbon cycles. A colony of bacteria in the soil can alter the fertility of farmland. Even within the human body, microbial communities influence our health, shaping digestion and immune responses. The tiny becomes the immense when multiplied across the vastness of Earth. What unites microbes is not a single lineage, but their shared smallness and their quiet ubiquity. They are everywhere at once, and they take on forms that defy simple classification. To think of them is to step outside human-centered notions of life and to imagine a biosphere where the majority of action takes place at scales we cannot see. Their world is not lesser for being small. It is simply hidden, operating in parallel with the visible world and sustaining it from beneath. As we continue this exploration, it becomes clear that to understand microbes is to understand the foundation of life itself. They remind us that existence is not measured by size, but by presence, by influence, and by persistence. The visible forms of life, trees, animals, humans, are like temporary structures built upon the quiet groundwork of microbial activity. Without them, the grand landscapes of our world would quickly collapse. And so, when we speak of microbes, we are speaking of life in its most essential, enduring, and universal form. 3. The abundance of microbial life. To appreciate the abundance of microbial life, one must first adjust the scale of imagination. Our minds are trained to measure the world in meters, kilometers, and vast landscapes. But microbes exist in realms of micrometers, invisible to our eyes yet present in such numbers that they dominate the planet. If we could somehow make the invisible visible, the entire surface of the earth would shimmer with microbial presence. Every grain of soil, every drop of water, every exhaled breath is filled with these tiny beings, existing not in isolation, but in unimaginable multitudes. They are the hidden majority, and their sheer abundance surpasses anything we usually associate with life. Consider for a moment the soil beneath our feet. A single teaspoon of healthy soil contains more microbes than there are people living on Earth. Within that small scoop lies a bustling metropolis of bacteria, fungi, archaea, and other microorganisms, each performing its role in breaking down organic matter, recycling nutrients, and sustaining the plants that rise above the ground. Billions of individual cells cluster together in that tiny pinch of earth, forming networks of communication and cooperation that scientists are only beginning to understand. To hold soil in one's hand is to cradle a universe in miniature, a dense population so vast that it escapes comprehension. The oceans, covering more than 2/3 of the Earth's surface, provide an even greater stage for microbial abundance. In a single milliliter of seawater, no more than a droplet, There may be over 1 million bacterial cells and countless viruses. These microbes drift through currents, forming the base of the marine food web. They capture sunlight, convert carbon, and release oxygen, quietly driving the cycles that regulate life on the planet. When multiplied across the expanse of the oceans, their numbers rise into the unimaginable, a reservoir of living cells so large that it outweighs the combined mass of whales, fish, and every other visible marine creature. The oceans are not just bodies of water. They are living systems filled with endless microbial life. Even the air around us carries these unseen travelers. Microbes float on dust, attach themselves to droplets of moisture, and ride the currents of wind across continents. They move from one environment to another, linking distant ecosystems in ways we rarely notice. High above mountain ranges and drifting in the upper layers of the atmosphere, microbes persist, enduring conditions of thin oxygen, intense sunlight, and cold. Their presence in the air reveals that there is no true emptiness in the biosphere. Life extends even into the invisible spaces between the solid and liquid realms. When we look inward, the abundance of microbes becomes even more personal. The human body itself is a vast microbial habitat. Trillions of bacterial cells live on our skin, in our mouths, and most densely within our intestines. In fact, by cell count, the human body is almost as much microbial as it is human. Though our own cells are larger and form our tissues and organs, the smaller and more numerous microbes form a complex ecosystem within us, interacting with our biology in ways essential to our health. To think of oneself as an individual is, in truth, to think of a collaboration, an alliance between human cells and the microbial multitudes that inhabit us. The numbers themselves invite awe. Estimates suggest that Earth holds around 5 nonillion microbial cells, a number written as 5 followed by 30 zeros. This figure exceeds the number of stars in the known universe, a reminder that life's true abundance lies not in the heavens above, but in the invisible world beneath and around us. If all the microbes of the planet were gathered and weighed, their combined biomass would surpass that of every tree, insect, fish, and mammal. They form the majority not only in numbers but also in mass, anchoring the biosphere in their silent, tireless activity. What makes this abundance so remarkable is the variety of strategies microbes use to survive. While animals and plants often depend on narrow conditions of climate and nutrition, microbes adapt swiftly to whatever is available. Some consume sugars, others feed on minerals, and still others rely on sunlight, or even chemical energy drawn from rocks and gases. This versatility allows them to populate every environment, from the depths of oceans to the surfaces of leaves, from frozen glaciers to desert sands. Wherever life can exist, microbes already exist in abundance, and often in places where larger life cannot endure. The abundance of microbes also carries a temporal dimension. They reproduce quickly, often dividing in a matter of minutes or hours. This means that microbial populations can swell rapidly, responding to changes in their environment with incredible speed. A nutrient-rich pool of water might see its microbial inhabitants multiply into dense blooms overnight. A fallen tree in a forest is rapidly colonized by bacteria and fungi that begin the work of decomposition. Even within the human body, microbial communities can shift in response to diet, illness, or medicine, changing their composition almost as swiftly as weather changes in the sky. Their abundance is not only numerical but also dynamic, a constant renewal that keeps life flowing. In the deep past, this abundance has shaped the history of Earth itself. When cyanobacteria spread across ancient seas, they released oxygen in such great quantities that they altered the very composition of the atmosphere. This event, known as the Great Oxidation, was one of the most significant turning points in the story of the planet. It illustrates that microbial abundance is not a quiet background detail but a force capable of transforming worlds. Even today, the oxygen we breathe, the nitrogen in our proteins, and the carbon cycles that sustain ecosystems are all managed by the endless activity of microbial populations. It can be humbling to realize that the grand diversity of visible life forests, animals, and even human civilizations rests upon the foundation of microbial abundance. Without the constant recycling of nutrients, the steady production of oxygen, and the regulation of greenhouse gases, the visible forms of life would falter. Microbes maintain balance through sheer numbers, performing their tasks everywhere, all at once, without pause. They are so numerous that they act as a planetary system, one that sustains the surface of the Earth in a steady equilibrium. When we imagine the planet without microbes, the vision quickly dissolves into impossibility. Without them, soils would cease to be fertile, organic matter would pile endlessly without decay, oceans would stagnate, and oxygen would dwindle. The visible world would wither, unable to persist without the unseen multitudes beneath it. In truth, microbes are not simply abundant, they are indispensable. Their numbers create a web of activity so complete that it forms the very stage upon which all other life plays its brief part. As we reflect on this hidden majority, there is a quiet wonder in realizing that the vastness of life is not always where we expect it. The great herds on the plains, the dense forests, the teeming reefs, though spectacular, are not the true measure of life's abundance. Instead, it is the microbes, countless and unseen, that make up the bulk of Earth's living matter. They are the quiet background, the steady rhythm of existence, the eternal multitudes that have always been and will always be. To know life on Earth is to acknowledge this invisible foundation, this immense community that thrives in silence, abundant beyond imagining. 4. The first inhabitants of Earth. To understand microbes fully, we must turn our gaze backward, far beyond the rise of animals and plants, back to the earliest chapters of Earth's history. More than 4 billion years ago, the planet was a very different place. The surface was still cooling from its molten beginnings, and the atmosphere was thick with gases like methane, ammonia, and carbon dioxide. The oceans were forming under skies that lacked oxygen, and sunlight beat down unfiltered by an ozone layer. Volcanoes erupted frequently, releasing heat and minerals into the seas, while asteroids still occasionally collided with the planet. It was a world harsh by our standards, unpredictable, and inhospitable to the kind of life we now know. Yet, within this turbulent environment, something extraordinary occurred. Life emerged, and it did so at the smallest of scales. The earliest life forms were microbes. They did not possess the complexity of plants or animals, nor did they have the intricate structures of modern eukaryotic cells. Instead, they were simple prokaryotes, organisms without a nucleus, relying on basic chemistry to survive and reproduce. These first microbes were likely anaerobic, meaning they did not require oxygen to live, which was fortunate, since the Earth's atmosphere contained almost none at that time. They made their living by drawing energy from the environment in novel ways, perhaps by metabolizing hydrogen, sulfur, or iron, or by capturing energy from sunlight through primitive forms of photosynthesis. However they survived, they were the pioneers of biology, the first to establish a foothold on the young planet. One of the most striking pieces of evidence for early microbial life comes in the form of stromatolites, layered structures built by communities of microorganisms. These formations, found in rocks that are billions of years old, show how microbial mats trapped and bound sediments over time, leaving behind fossils that stand as some of the oldest records of life on Earth. Stromatolites still exist today in certain shallow marine environments, where modern microbes continue the same slow work of building layers, much as their ancestors did billions of years ago. To gaze upon a stromatolite is to look directly into the deep past, to see the handiwork of ancient microbial life that helped shape the surface of our world. These early microbes not only survived but also transformed the planet. For hundreds of millions of years, they were the only living things, evolving and diversifying into new forms. Some learned to harness sunlight through photosynthesis, and in doing so, they began to release oxygen as a byproduct. At first, this oxygen reacted with minerals in the oceans, binding with iron to form rust-colored deposits that still appear in ancient rocks known as banded iron formations. But eventually, oxygen began to accumulate in the atmosphere itself. This shift, known as the Great Oxidation Event, was one of the most profound changes in Earth's history. Microbes, through their collective activity, altered the chemistry of the air, making it possible for future organisms to evolve forms of life that depend on oxygen for energy. The rise of oxygen was both a gift and a challenge. For organisms that had evolved in its absence, oxygen was toxic. Many of the early microbes perished, unable to cope with this reactive gas. Yet others adapted, developing metabolic pathways that not only tolerated oxygen, but used it as a highly efficient means of generating energy. This innovation paved the way for the eventual evolution of complex, multicellular life. Thus, from the quiet work of microbes, the stage was set for all that would follow: plants, animals, and, much later, humans. In tracing this story, we find that microbes were not merely passive passengers on Earth, but active engineers of its environment. They created conditions that allowed life to expand into new forms, and they continue to do so today. Long before the first forests spread across the land, before fish swam in the seas, or birds took to the skies, microbial life had already written the opening chapters of biology. The fossil record may show us the bones of dinosaurs and the shells of trilobites, but beneath these larger stories lies the deeper truth. The world of microbes is where life truly began. The persistence of microbes through deep time also tells us something about their resilience. The Earth has endured many catastrophic events: asteroid impacts, ice ages, massive volcanic eruptions, and shifts in climate that reshaped the continents. Through all of these upheavals, microbes endured. They adapted quickly, altering their metabolisms and finding new niches in which to thrive. They did not require large bodies or complex organs. Their simplicity was their strength. A single cell could survive where larger organisms could not, and their rapid reproduction ensured that, even in the harshest conditions, some would carry on. The earliest microbial lineages also reveal connections to modern life. The mitochondria within our cells, the structures that generate energy for animals and plants, are thought to have originated as free-living bacteria that were engulfed by another cell billions of years ago. Similarly, the chloroplasts in plant cells, which capture sunlight for photosynthesis, are descended from ancient cyanobacteria. These partnerships, known as endosymbiosis, illustrate how microbes not only began life on Earth, but also became part of the very fabric of complex organisms. Each breath we take, each leaf that grows, carries within it the legacy of ancient microbial ancestors. It is humbling to imagine that for most of Earth's history, microbes were the only living inhabitants. For more than 2 billion years, life consisted solely of microscopic cells, quietly shaping the environment and evolving new capabilities. The age of animals and plants is relatively recent, a late chapter in a book whose opening volumes were written entirely by microbes. To understand life's origins is to recognize that microbes are not peripheral to the story, they are the story. Even today, studying the earliest microbes offers clues about where else life might exist in the universe. If tiny cells could emerge and thrive on a young Earth, in conditions so different from our own, then perhaps life may also arise on other planets or moons with water, minerals, and energy sources. The search for extraterrestrial life often focuses not on large organisms but on microbial forms, because they represent the simplest and most enduring expression of biology. In this sense, microbes are not only Earth's first inhabitants but also the most likely ambassadors of life beyond our planet. As we let this perspective settle, the image of the early Earth becomes a little clearer. A world without forests or animals, a world of rock, water, and sky, populated only by invisible cells, multiplying in the seas. These cells did not seek grandeur or complexity, yet they carried the spark of life, and they sustained it through the eons. They remind us that life does not begin with spectacle but with persistence, with countless small existences building toward something greater. Microbes were the first to inhabit Earth, and they remain the most numerous still. Their story is not separate from ours, but is the foundation upon which our own existence rests, a quiet continuity stretching back to the dawn of time. 5. Cyanobacteria and the gift of oxygen. Long before animals breathed, before forests rose, and before oceans teemed with fish, the Earth was a world without oxygen. Its early atmosphere was heavy with carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrogen. But the gas we now consider essential for life was absent. Oxygen, though common today, was once rare and even toxic to the organisms that lived in those ancient seas. The story of how Earth came to be transformed into a planet rich in breathable air is one of the most remarkable chapters in the history of life. And at its center are microbes known as cyanobacteria. These tiny cells, unassuming in form, carried out a process that would change everything. They captured the energy of sunlight, split water molecules, and released oxygen as a byproduct. Over vast stretches of time, this steady accumulation of oxygen reshaped the atmosphere, altered the oceans, and opened the path to the evolution of complex life. Cyanobacteria are among the most ancient organisms on the planet. Fossil evidence, preserved in stromatolites and other ancient rock formations, suggests that they were already present more than 3 billion years ago. They are sometimes called blue-green algae, though they are not algae at all, but bacteria with the ability to perform oxygenic photosynthesis. This means they use light energy to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugars, releasing oxygen in the process. While plants perform this same miracle today, it was the cyanobacteria that did it first, pioneering a way of life that would eventually spread across the globe and support the rise of all oxygen-breathing organisms. For millions of years, the oxygen released by cyanobacteria did not accumulate in the air. Instead, it reacted with dissolved iron in the oceans, forming rust-colored deposits that settled on the seafloor. These deposits, now visible as banded iron formations in ancient rocks, are a record of the invisible work carried out by microbes so long ago. Only when the iron was largely consumed did oxygen begin to saturate the waters and, eventually, seep into the atmosphere. This gradual buildup, known as the Great Oxidation Event, occurred around 2.4 billion years ago. It was one of the most profound environmental changes in Earth's history, driven not by geological forces or cataclysmic impacts, but by the quiet persistence of microbial activity. The Great Oxidation Event was not a gentle transformation. For the organisms that had evolved in an oxygen-free world, this new gas was poisonous. Oxygen is reactive. It damages cellular components and disrupts metabolic processes. Many of the early anaerobic microbes were driven into new niches, hiding in oxygen-free environments, such as deep sediments, hydrothermal vents, or the guts of other organisms. Some lineages adapted, developing mechanisms to detoxify oxygen or to use it to their advantage. The crisis for some became an opportunity for others. With oxygen came the possibility of aerobic respiration, a way of extracting energy from food that was far more efficient than earlier pathways. This innovation allowed cells to grow larger, form new structures, and eventually cooperate as multicellular organisms. Without oxygen, animals could not exist. Without oxygen, humans could not breathe. All of this traces back to cyanobacteria. The scale of this microbial transformation is difficult to imagine. For hundreds of millions of years, cyanobacteria released oxygen molecule by molecule, slowly filling the skies. Their activity was relentless, powered by the sun, distributed across shallow seas and tidal flats, where they formed mats and colonies. Day after day, generation after generation, these tiny cells produced oxygen that accumulated and lingered. Over time, the composition of the atmosphere shifted dramatically. What was once a world of suffocating gases became one with an atmosphere rich in oxygen, and the protective ozone layer that shielded the surface from harmful ultraviolet radiation. The Earth we know today, with blue skies and breathing creatures, is the result of this microbial gift. Cyanobacteria did not vanish with the rise of plants. They are still with us, abundant in oceans, lakes, and soils. In fact, they continue to produce a significant portion of the oxygen we rely upon. In marine environments, microscopic cyanobacteria drift with the currents, capturing sunlight and releasing oxygen. Collectively, they are responsible for a large fraction of the oxygen generated each year on the planet. Each breath we take is, in part, a continuation of the ancient process they began billions of years ago. Though invisible to most eyes, their contribution is ongoing. The influence of cyanobacteria extends beyond oxygen production. Some form partnerships with other organisms, living symbiotically within plants and fungi. Others fix nitrogen, turning atmospheric nitrogen gas into compounds that can be used by living beings to build proteins and DNA. In these ways, cyanobacteria support the fertility of soils and the productivity of ecosystems. Their role is not confined to history but continues actively, shaping the cycles of life and energy on Earth. To think of cyanobacteria is to recognize that even the smallest organisms can alter the course of an entire planet. They did not set out with intention or plan. They simply lived according to their nature, using sunlight to sustain themselves. Yet the collective effect of countless generations was transformative. They turned Earth into an oxygen-rich world, made the evolution of complex organisms possible, and ensured that energy from the sun could be harnessed to support life in forms far beyond themselves. In their unassuming persistence, they accomplished what no other force had achieved. They changed the air itself. This story also serves as a reminder of the interconnectedness of life and environment. The atmosphere we breathe is not a fixed feature of Earth, but the product of living activity. Without microbes, the air would be different, perhaps unbreathable. Life shapes the planet even as the planet shapes life, and nowhere is this clearer than in the role cyanobacteria played in oxygenating the world. It is a profound illustration of how small-scale processes, repeated across immense spans of time, can create global transformations. When we breathe in and fill our lungs with oxygen, we are participating in a cycle that began billions of years ago. Each molecule of oxygen is a legacy of microbial invention, a gift passed down from the cyanobacteria that first split water and released it into the atmosphere. In the quiet act of breathing, there is a connection to the ancient seas, to the mats of microbes that spread across shorelines, and to the invisible labor that made our existence possible. Cyanobacteria, though simple, gave us the sky, and with it, the possibility of life as we know it. 6. Microbes as recyclers of life. Every living thing, from the smallest insect to the tallest tree, follows a cycle of birth, growth, decline, and death. When an animal falls in a forest, when leaves drift down in autumn, or when unseen roots perish beneath the soil, the materials that once formed life do not vanish. They must be returned to the environment, transformed into forms that can be used again by new organisms. Without this continuous recycling, the planet would quickly become overwhelmed with the remains of the dead, while essential nutrients would be locked away, unavailable to sustain fresh growth. The agents responsible for this profound process are not the large and visible creatures we so often admire, but the tiny, tireless microbes. They are the recyclers of life, the invisible workforce that dismantles the old and prepares the ground for the new. To understand their role, it helps to imagine a forest floor blanketed with fallen leaves. At first glance, the leaves seem to rest untouched, but in truth, they are immediately colonized by bacteria and fungi. These microbes release enzymes that break down complex molecules like cellulose and lignin, which give plants their strength and rigidity. These molecules are difficult to digest, yet microbes have evolved intricate chemical tools to dismantle them piece by piece. As they work, they liberate carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and other elements back into the soil. These nutrients are then taken up by plants, which use them to grow new leaves and stems. Thus, through microbial recycling, the forest renews itself, season after season. The same process occurs everywhere life exists, in grasslands, in wetlands, and in the depths of the oceans. Microbes are constantly at work, breaking down organic matter, dead fish that sink to the seafloor, fallen branches in a river, and even the waste products of living animals are all processed by microbial communities. Their activity ensures that essential nutrients are not wasted, but are instead circulated through the biosphere. In this way, microbes form the foundation of nutrient cycles that support all ecosystems. The decomposition process also generates energy for the microbes themselves. By breaking down complex organic compounds, microbes release energy that sustains their own growth and reproduction. In doing so, they form intricate food webs at the microscopic level. Some microbes specialize in the early stages of decomposition, breaking down large molecules into simpler compounds. Others consume these byproducts, further processing them until they become minerals and gases. This stepwise progression ensures that nothing is left behind. One of the most important cycles maintained by microbes is the carbon cycle. Plants capture carbon dioxide from the air during photosynthesis, incorporating it into their tissues. When these plants die, their carbon-rich remains must be broken down. Microbes consume this material, releasing carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere through respiration. This balance between carbon storage and release helps regulate Earth's climate. In aquatic systems, microbes also play a role in forming carbonate minerals that sink to the seafloor, locking away carbon for long periods. Without microbial recycling, carbon would not move fluidly between land, ocean, and atmosphere, and the stability of the climate would be lost. Nitrogen, another vital element, is also cycled by microbes. All living things require nitrogen to build proteins and DNA, yet most cannot use the nitrogen gas that makes up the majority of Earth's atmosphere. Certain microbes, however, have the unique ability to fix nitrogen, converting it into forms that plants and animals can use. When organisms die, other microbes take over, decomposing their tissues and releasing nitrogen back into the soil and water. Still other microbes carry out denitrification, returning nitrogen to the atmosphere and completing the cycle. In this way, microbes act as both the beginning and the end of the nitrogen pathway, ensuring its continuous availability for life. Phosphorus, sulfur, and many trace elements also flow through microbial hands. In wetlands, for example, microbes break down organic matter under low oxygen conditions, releasing compounds that nourish plants and other organisms. In the ocean, microbial activity in deep sediments recycles nutrients that eventually rise to the surface through currents, fueling blooms of plankton. In deserts, where visible life is sparse, Microbial crusts on the soil trap and recycle nutrients, allowing hardy plants to persist in harsh conditions. Everywhere on Earth, microbes ensure that the essential ingredients of life remain in circulation. The recycling work of microbes also helps prevent the accumulation of waste. Animal droppings, fallen wood, and the bodies of the dead are all potential hazards if left to pile up unchecked. In a world without microbes, these materials would accumulate endlessly, burying the land in debris. But with microbes present, decomposition begins almost immediately. Even waste that seems inert, such as keratin in hair and feathers or chitin in insect shells, is eventually broken down by specialized microbes. Nothing remains untouched for long. The planet remains clean and fertile, not by accident, but because of the invisible labors of microbes. This role extends into the human sphere as well. Compost piles, for instance, rely on microbial activity to transform kitchen scraps and yard waste into rich soil. Wastewater treatment plants depend on microbial communities to break down sewage, purifying water for reuse. Even within our own bodies, microbes recycle materials constantly, processing food into usable nutrients and breaking down waste products. In every context, from natural ecosystems to human systems, microbes are indispensable recyclers. It is worth noting that the process of decomposition is not only about breaking down, but also about building up. As microbes consume organic matter, they release substances that enrich the environment. Humus, the dark, fertile component of soil, is largely the result of microbial activity. This substance improves soil structure, retains moisture, and supports plant growth. In aquatic systems, microbial recycling supports the production of plankton, which in turn feed fish and other marine animals. The act of recycling, then, is also an act of creation, turning what has ended into the basis for new beginnings. The quiet efficiency of microbial recycling offers a lesson in the interconnectedness of life. Every creature, no matter how large, eventually returns to the microscopic world. The towering tree, the soaring bird, the grazing mammal, all are broken down in time, their elements reabsorbed into the cycles of Earth. Microbes ensure that nothing is wasted, that every fragment of life contributes to the next generation. In this way, they weave continuity through the apparent endings, transforming death into renewal. As we reflect on this role, it becomes clear that the visible abundance of life on Earth could not exist without the invisible abundance of microbes. They are the unseen caretakers, maintaining the balance that allows forests to flourish, oceans to teem with life, and soils to support endless cycles of growth. Their work is constant, unheralded, and essential. In every fallen leaf, in every grain of soil, in every drop of water, microbes are at work, recycling life so that life may continue. 7. Microbes in the soil. Beneath our feet lies a world that is often overlooked. Yet it is among the most vital ecosystems on Earth. The soil, which we tend to see as simple dirt, is in truth a living, breathing community filled with astonishing diversity. It is not only a physical foundation for plants to take root, but also a biological one, teeming with microbes that sustain life in ways both subtle and profound. To walk upon the ground is to step above a hidden universe, where billions of microscopic organisms carry out processes that make the land fertile, productive, and capable of supporting the forests, fields, and crops we depend upon. Soil is alive because of its microbes, and without them, the land would be barren. In a single gram of soil, no more than a pinch between the fingers, there may be billions of bacterial cells, thousands of fungal threads, countless archaea, and a multitude of protozoa and viruses. This density of life surpasses almost any other habitat on the planet. Within this miniature universe, organisms compete, cooperate, and communicate, forming networks as complex as those of forests or coral reefs. The soil microbiome, as it is called, is a reservoir of genetic diversity and metabolic potential unmatched anywhere else. These microbes break down organic matter, cycle nutrients, build soil structure, and form partnerships with plants, creating a web of interactions that sustains the green world above. One of the most important roles microbes play in soil is the decomposition of organic matter. Leaves, roots, and dead organisms that fall to the ground are quickly colonized by bacteria and fungi. They release enzymes that digest cellulose, lignin, and other plant materials, reducing them to simpler compounds. As decomposition proceeds, carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus are released into the soil, where they become available to plants. In this way, microbes act as the gatekeepers of fertility, ensuring that nutrients are not locked away but recycled continuously. A forest, meadow, or farm field relies on this unseen workforce to remain productive year after year. Beyond recycling, soil microbes contribute to the physical structure of the soil itself. As they grow and move, they secrete sticky substances that bind soil particles together, forming aggregates that improve texture and stability. Fungal hyphae, thread-like filaments that extend through the soil, weave around particles, binding them into larger clumps. These structures create spaces for air and water to move, allowing roots to penetrate and plants to access essential resources. Without microbial activity, soil would be compacted and lifeless, unable to support the complex communities of plants and animals that depend upon it. Among the most fascinating interactions in soil are those between microbes and plant roots. Plants exude sugars and other compounds into the soil, attracting microbes to their vicinity. In return, many microbes provide benefits to the plants. Some bacteria, known as rhizobia, form nodules on the roots of legumes such as peas, beans, and clover. Within these nodules, the bacteria convert atmospheric nitrogen into forms the plant can use, effectively fertilizing the soil. This relationship is one of the great symbioses of nature, allowing plants to thrive even in nitrogen-poor soils and enriching the land for future growth. Fungi also form intimate partnerships with plants through structures called mycorrhizae. In this arrangement, fungal hyphae penetrate or surround plant roots, greatly extending their reach into the soil. The fungi provide plants with nutrients and water that would otherwise be inaccessible, while the plants supply the fungi with carbohydrates produced during photosynthesis. Mycorrhizal networks can connect multiple plants, linking them in a shared web of exchange, sometimes referred to as the Wood Wide Web. Through these connections, nutrients can flow between different species, and signals of stress or danger can be transmitted. It is a vivid demonstration of how microbes in the soil create not only individual partnerships, but entire communities of collaboration. The impact of soil microbes is not limited to plants alone. They also influence the climate by controlling the release and storage of greenhouse gases. Microbial respiration releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, while other microbial processes capture and store carbon in stable forms within the soil. Certain microbes produce methane, a potent greenhouse gas, while others consume it, balancing its presence. The soil is thus a dynamic interface between the biosphere and the atmosphere, with microbes mediating the exchange of gases that affect the entire planet's climate. Human history has been shaped by soil microbes as well. Agriculture, which supports civilization, depends upon fertile soils, and fertility depends upon microbial activity. Farmers have long observed that certain crops enrich the soil, not realizing that microbial symbioses were at work beneath the surface. The practice of crop rotation, planting legumes to restore nitrogen, is an ancient technique rooted in microbial processes. Composting, another time-honored practice, harnesses the power of microbes to convert waste into valuable fertilizer. Even without fully understanding them, human societies have relied on soil microbes for millennia. Yet this delicate microbial balance can be disturbed. Excessive use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, deforestation, and overgrazing can disrupt soil communities, reducing their diversity and resilience. When microbial networks are broken, soils may erode, compact, or lose their fertility. This degradation is not easily reversed, for it takes centuries to form rich, living soil, and only moments to strip it away. Protecting soil microbes is thus essential for sustaining agriculture, forests, and the natural cycles that support life. Despite their importance, much of the soil microbiome remains mysterious. Only a small fraction of soil microbes can be cultured and studied in laboratories, leaving the vast majority known only through genetic traces. Advances in DNA sequencing have revealed a staggering array of organisms, many of which are unlike anything previously described. These discoveries suggest that the soil harbors untapped reservoirs of enzymes, antibiotics, and biochemical pathways, with potential benefits for medicine, industry, and environmental restoration. The soil is not only a foundation for life, but also a frontier of discovery. As we reflect on the hidden world beneath our feet, it becomes clear that soil is not an inert medium but a living ecosystem, crafted and maintained by microbes. They recycle the past into the future, build structures that support roots and plants, form partnerships that enrich fertility, and mediate the balance of gases in the atmosphere. To walk across a field, to plant a garden, or to rest in a forest is to be supported by this unseen world. Soil microbes are the quiet custodians of the land, working tirelessly in darkness and silence to sustain the life we see. In every handful of soil, there is a universe. Its inhabitants are small, but their influence is immense. They remind us that the true richness of the earth lies not only in its landscapes, but also in its hidden depths, where microbes weave life together, grain by grain, root by root, season by season. The fertility of the land, the growth of the forests, and the harvests that feed humanity all trace back to the tireless labors of the microbial world beneath our feet. 8. Microbes in water ecosystems. When we look at a body of water, whether it is a quiet pond, a rushing river, or the vast expanse of the open ocean, we often see only the surface. The ripples, the reflections of clouds, the darting of fish, or the floating of leaves catch our eye, but the true foundation of aquatic life is invisible. Beneath the surface, within every drop of water, lies a teeming universe of microbes. These organisms, though hidden from direct sight, form the basis of aquatic ecosystems. They sustain the food web, regulate the chemistry of water, and drive cycles that affect not only the oceans and lakes but also the entire planet. Without them, the waters of Earth would be sterile, lifeless, and unable to support the richness we take for granted. In the open ocean, one of the most abundant organisms is a tiny cyanobacterium known as Prochlorococcus. It is so small that millions can exist in a single milliliter of seawater. Yet collectively, they are responsible for producing a significant portion of the oxygen in our atmosphere. Alongside them drift other photosynthetic microbes such as diatoms, dinoflagellates, and green algae. These organisms capture sunlight, convert carbon dioxide into organic matter, and release oxygen. Together, they form what is known as phytoplankton, the floating plants of the sea. Though individually microscopic, phytoplankton are collectively immense, generating roughly half of the world's oxygen and forming the foundation of marine food webs. Every fish, whale, and seabird ultimately depends on the productivity of these invisible cells. Beneath phytoplankton lies another community known as zooplankton, which includes tiny animals and protozoans that feed on the photosynthetic microbes. They, in turn, are consumed by larger animals such as small fish and krill, which then feed bigger fish, seabirds, and marine mammals. The food chains of the ocean, complex and interconnected, begin with the smallest microbes. Without this invisible base, the visible abundance of marine life could not exist. When we marvel at a school of fish or the migration of whales, we are witnessing the ripple effects of microbial productivity far below our perception. In freshwater systems, such as lakes and rivers, microbes play similar roles. Algae and cyanobacteria generate oxygen and organic matter, while bacteria decompose dead material and recycle nutrients. Rivers, constantly moving and receiving inputs from land, carry vast microbial communities that process organic matter from soils and forests, breaking it down before it reaches the sea. Lakes, on the other hand, often develop layers where different microbial communities dominate. Near the surface, oxygen-producing microbes thrive in the sunlight, while in deeper layers, where light cannot reach, anaerobic microbes process organic matter through fermentation or by using alternative electron acceptors such as sulfur or iron. These stratified systems illustrate how microbes adapt to gradients of light, oxygen, and nutrients, filling every available niche. One of the most fascinating processes in aquatic ecosystems is the microbial loop. In this cycle, dissolved organic matter released by phytoplankton is consumed by bacteria, which are then eaten by protozoa, which are in turn consumed by larger zooplankton. This recycling ensures that nutrients and energy remain within the food web rather than sinking out of reach. The microbial loop is a silent but essential mechanism that sustains productivity in oceans and lakes. Without it, much of the energy captured by phytoplankton would be lost, and higher organisms would starve. Microbes in aquatic systems also play a vital role in regulating Earth's climate. Oceans are the largest reservoir of carbon on the planet, and microbes are the primary agents controlling its movement. When phytoplankton photosynthesize, they absorb carbon dioxide, temporarily removing it from the atmosphere. Some of this carbon is recycled through the microbial loop, but a portion sinks to the deep ocean as dead cells or fecal pellets from zooplankton. This process, known as the biological pump, sequesters carbon for centuries or even millennia. Without microbial activity, the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere would be far higher, and the climate would be very different from what we know today. Beyond carbon, aquatic microbes influence the cycles of nitrogen, sulfur. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria in the oceans convert atmospheric nitrogen into usable forms, supporting the growth of phytoplankton. Denitrifying bacteria, meanwhile, return nitrogen to the atmosphere, maintaining balance. Sulfur metabolizing microbes contribute to the formation of compounds that influence cloud formation and weather patterns. In this way, the invisible activity of microbes in water not only sustains life in aquatic systems, but also reaches outward to affect the entire biosphere. Some microbial processes in aquatic environments are visually striking, even though the organisms themselves are too small to see. During certain conditions, phytoplankton may bloom in such numbers that they color the water. Red tides, caused by massive blooms of dinoflagellates, can tint the sea a reddish hue. Other blooms may turn lakes green or brown. While some of these events can be harmful, producing toxins that affect fish and humans, they are reminders of the immense power microbes hold in shaping the appearance and chemistry of aquatic systems. These blooms are natural expressions of microbial abundance, though they may be intensified by human activities that add excess nutrients to water bodies. Deep in the oceans, where sunlight cannot penetrate, microbes have found other ways to sustain ecosystems. At hydrothermal vents along mid-ocean ridges, superheated water rich in minerals gushes from the seafloor. Here, microbes capture chemical energy from sulfur and other compounds, producing organic matter in a process known as chemosynthesis. Entire communities of worms, clams, and crabs thrive around these vents, relying ultimately on the productivity of chemosynthetic microbes. This discovery revealed that life can flourish without sunlight, expanding our understanding of the possibilities for ecosystems on Earth and perhaps on other planets. Microbial mats, dense communities of bacteria layered upon one another, also thrive in aquatic environments. These mats, sometimes only a few millimeters thick, create complex microhabitats where different species occupy distinct layers. At the surface, photosynthetic microbes capture light, while beneath them, anaerobic bacteria metabolize sulfur or methane. Each layer depends on the others, forming a miniature ecosystem that mirrors larger cycles of life. Such mats are thought to resemble some of the earliest ecosystems on Earth, offering a glimpse into life as it might have been billions of years ago. When we stand by a riverbank or look out over the sea, it is easy to forget the hidden world within. The waters shimmer, waves rise and fall, but beneath the surface lies an immense network of microbial life, ceaselessly at work. They capture sunlight, recycle nutrients, regulate gases, and sustain food chains. They transform the invisible into the visible, turning molecules of carbon and nitrogen into the fish that swim, the birds that dive, and the mammals that feed. Their influence extends from the smallest pools to the global climate itself. To reflect on microbes in water is to recognize the depth of life's interconnectedness. The oxygen we breathe, the stability of the climate, and the abundance of oceans all trace back to the activity of cells too small to see. These microbes form the hidden foundation of aquatic ecosystems, linking the smallest processes to the largest patterns. They remind us that even in the vastness of the sea, the true power lies in the tiniest inhabitants, whose quiet labor sustains the world above. 9. The nitrogen cycle and microbial alchemy. Nitrogen is one of the most essential elements for life, woven into the very fabric of proteins, enzymes, and DNA. Without nitrogen, no cell could grow, divide, or function, for it is the backbone of amino acids, the building blocks of life, and the strands of nucleic acids that carry genetic information. Yet despite its abundance in the atmosphere, where nitrogen gas makes up nearly 4/5 of the air we breathe, this form of nitrogen is inaccessible to most living things. It is bound tightly in pairs of atoms, held together by a strong triple bond that resists breaking. Plants, animals, and humans cannot use nitrogen gas directly. Instead, they depend on a remarkable transformation carried out by microbes, tiny chemists, that unlock this element from the air and convert it into usable forms. The nitrogen cycle, as it is known, is a grand collaboration of microbial processes, a hidden alchemy that ensures the continuous flow of this vital element through ecosystems. At the start of this cycle is nitrogen fixation, the process by which atmospheric nitrogen is transformed into ammonia or related compounds that living organisms can assimilate. This feat is performed by certain bacteria and archaea, collectively called diazotrophs. Among the best-known examples are the rhizobia, bacteria that form nodules on the roots of legumes such as beans, peas, and clover. Inside these nodules, the bacteria live in a mutual partnership with the plant, receiving sugars and a protected environment while supplying the plant with fixed nitrogen. This relationship has shaped ecosystems and agriculture alike, allowing fields to remain fertile without artificial fertilizers and enriching soils naturally over centuries. Beyond legumes, nitrogen-fixing microbes live freely in soils, in oceans, and even in symbiosis with fungi and mosses, expanding the reach of this essential process across the globe. The conversion of nitrogen gas into ammonia is no simple matter. It requires a powerful enzyme called nitrogenase, which is able to break the triple bond of nitrogen molecules. This reaction demands great energy, and microbes invest significant resources to accomplish it. Yet the benefit is immense, for it transforms inert atmospheric nitrogen into compounds that can be incorporated into proteins and nucleic acids. Once fixed, nitrogen becomes part of living tissues, flowing upward through plants to herbivores and carnivores alike. Every bite of food, every strand of hair, and every heartbeat is linked to the invisible work of nitrogen-fixing microbes. After nitrogen enters living systems, it continues its journey through further microbial transformations. Ammonia, produced by nitrogen fixation or released during decomposition, is converted by specialized bacteria in a process called nitrification. First, ammonia is oxidized into nitrite by microbes such as Nitrosomonas. Then, other bacteria, including Nitrobacter, convert nitrite into nitrate, a form readily absorbed by plant roots. Through nitrification, microbes ensure that nitrogen circulates in forms that can sustain plant growth, enriching the productivity of ecosystems from forests to farmland. Yet the story does not end there. Just as nitrogen is fixed into usable forms, it must also be returned to the atmosphere to complete the cycle. This final step is performed by denitrifying bacteria, which reduce nitrate back into nitrogen gas. In oxygen-poor environments such as wetlands, waterlogged soils, and sediments at the bottoms of lakes and oceans, these microbes thrive. They use nitrate as an alternative to oxygen in their respiration, releasing nitrogen gas into the atmosphere as a byproduct. This denitrification process prevents the buildup of excess nitrogen compounds in ecosystems, maintaining balance and closing the loop that begins with nitrogen fixation. There are additional pathways in this microbial alchemy, adding further richness to the cycle. Some microbes carry out a process known as anemox, or anaerobic ammonium oxidation, in which ammonia and nitrite are converted directly into nitrogen gas. This pathway, discovered only in the late 20th century, revealed yet another way that microbes regulate the flow of nitrogen. Similarly, microbes participate in the release of nitrous oxide, a potent greenhouse gas. These hidden transformations remind us that the nitrogen cycle is not a single, simple loop, but a web of interconnected processes, each mediated by microbial communities, finely tuned to their environments. The importance of the nitrogen cycle cannot be overstated. It fuels the growth of crops, the abundance of forests, and the productivity of oceans. Without it, life would quickly stall, starved of the essential molecules needed to build proteins and DNA. The cycle also influences the chemistry of the atmosphere and the fertility of soils, shaping both local ecosystems and global patterns. All of this is orchestrated by microbes, tirelessly carrying out their chemical transformations in soils, sediments, and waters across the planet. Their work is silent, but its effects are vast, extending into every breath, every meal, and every living cell. Human activities, however, have altered this delicate cycle. The invention of the Haber-Bosch process in the early 20th century allowed humans to fix nitrogen artificially, producing fertilizers that now sustain global agriculture. While this technological achievement has supported billions of people, it has also disrupted natural nitrogen balances. Excess fertilizer runs off into rivers and lakes, fueling microbial blooms that deplete oxygen and create dead zones. Atmospheric nitrogen compounds from industry and vehicles contribute to pollution and climate change. Even in these disruptions, microbes remain central, responding to new inputs and shifting their activity in ways that ripple through ecosystems. Understanding their role in the nitrogen cycle has therefore become essential for addressing the challenges of sustainability and environmental health. Beyond its ecological importance, the microbial nitrogen cycle also offers a lesson in patience and persistence. These transformations occur continuously, often at scales too small to notice. but they accumulate into forces that shape the biosphere. The conversion of nitrogen gas into ammonia, the oxidation of ammonia into nitrates, the return of nitrogen to the atmosphere. Each step is a quiet act, carried out billions of times over in soils, wetlands, and oceans. Together, they sustain the flow of life. The invisible chemists of the microbial world ensure that no molecule of nitrogen remains locked away forever, but instead moves, transforms, and supports the cycles of growth and renewal. As we reflect on the nitrogen cycle, it becomes clear that microbes do not merely exist within ecosystems. They create them. They are the reason plants can grow tall, the reason animals can build muscle, the reason DNA itself can form and replicate. Without their alchemy, the air would be filled with inaccessible nitrogen, useless to life despite its abundance. Through their ceaseless labor, microbes unlock this treasure and share it with the entire living world. Every living being carries within it the mark of their work, for nitrogen is part of us all. To breathe, to eat, to move, is to participate in the microbial nitrogen cycle. With every heartbeat, proteins crafted from fixed nitrogen sustain us. With every thought, nucleic acids shaped from nitrogen carry our memories. The hidden chemists of the earth have written themselves into the fabric of every organism, leaving behind a legacy not in monuments or structures, but in the molecules of life itself. The nitrogen cycle, driven by microbes, is not only a process of chemistry but a testament to the deep interdependence of life, a reminder that even the air around us is alive with potential, waiting to be unlocked by the smallest hands of all. 10. Extremophiles. Life in the harshest places. When we think of life, we often picture environments that seem comfortable, at least in comparison to the harsh extremes the planet can offer. We imagine green forests, calm lakes, or fertile soils where organisms thrive under moderate temperatures and abundant resources. Yet life is not confined to such gentle conditions. Microbes, in particular, reveal that life can endure in places that appear utterly hostile. These remarkable organisms are called extremophiles, meaning lovers of extremes, and they inhabit some of the harshest environments on Earth. They thrive in scalding heat, crushing pressure, icy wastelands, acidic pools, and saline deserts. In doing so, they demonstrate the resilience and adaptability of life itself. Their existence reshapes our understanding of biology, showing that living systems can flourish under conditions that once seemed incompatible with survival. One of the most dramatic habitats for extremophiles is found in hydrothermal vents deep on the ocean floor. Here, seawater seeps into cracks in the Earth's crust, is superheated by magma, and erupts back into the ocean, carrying dissolved minerals. Temperatures near these vents can reach over 350 degrees Celsius, conditions that would destroy most forms of life. Yet microbes not only survive but prosper here. They use chemical energy from hydrogen sulfide and other compounds in a process called chemosynthesis, producing organic matter without sunlight. Around them gather entire ecosystems of worms, clams, and crabs that depend on this microbial productivity. These vent communities reveal that life can be built upon chemistry alone, independent of the sun, and that microbes are the architects of such improbable worlds. Equally striking are the thermophiles that inhabit hot springs and geysers on land. In places like Yellowstone National Park, brilliantly colored mats of microbes form in steaming pools. Each color represents different species adapted to slightly different temperatures, from moderately warm edges to near boiling centers. Some of these microbes thrive at temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius, conditions once thought impossible for sustaining life. Their enzymes, stable in extreme heat, have even found use in modern science, providing tools for DNA amplification that underpin genetic research. What began as curiosity about colorful pools has led to discoveries that connect the resilience of microbes to the advancement of human knowledge. On the opposite end of the spectrum are the Psychrophiles, microbes that thrive in the cold. They inhabit glaciers, polar seas, and even the frozen soils of Antarctica. Some remain active at temperatures well below freezing, using special proteins and chemical adaptations to prevent ice crystals from damaging their cells. They grow slowly but steadily, eking out survival where other life lies dormant. In the deep ocean, where sunlight never penetrates and temperatures hover near freezing, Psychrophiles form communities that recycle nutrients and support marine ecosystems. Their persistence in icy environments suggests that life could exist on frozen worlds beyond Earth, perhaps beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus. Acidophiles, as their name suggests, are microbes that thrive in acidic environments. They can be found in pools of sulfuric acid near volcanic sites, in acid mine drainage created by human activity, and in soils where acidity is naturally high. These organisms tolerate pH levels that would dissolve the tissues of most life forms. They use specialized membranes and enzymes adapted to resist corrosion by hydrogen ions, allowing them to survive in what appear to be lethal conditions. Their ability to metabolize metals has even been harnessed in bioleaching, a process used to extract valuable minerals from ores. Thus, the same adaptations that allow them to endure hostile environments also contribute to human industry. Alkalophiles represent the other extreme, flourishing in environments with very high pH, such as soda lakes rich in carbonates. They thrive in waters that are more basic than bleach, adjusting their internal chemistry to maintain balance. These microbes remind us that life can adapt not only to temperature extremes, but also to radical variations in chemical conditions. Halophiles, lovers of salt, are another remarkable group. They inhabit hypersaline environments such as the Great Salt Lake, the Dead Sea, and salt flats, where concentrations of salt exceed those of the ocean many times over. Ordinary cells would shrivel in such osmotic stress, but halophiles accumulate compatible solutes or specialized proteins that allow them to balance the pressure. Some produce vivid pigments, coloring salt ponds bright pink or orange. Their presence in such saline environments demonstrates once again that microbes fill niches where few others can survive. Barophiles, or piezophiles, thrive under immense pressure. In the deep trenches of the ocean, where the weight of water exerts pressures hundreds of times greater than at the surface, these microbes live undisturbed. They have adapted flexible membranes and pressure-resistant enzymes that allow them to function normally under crushing forces. Their existence challenges the notion that life requires gentle conditions, for they demonstrate that survival is possible even at the greatest depths. Radiophiles endure another form of extreme radiation. The bacterium Deinococcus radiodurans, often called Conan the bacterium, can withstand levels of ionizing radiation that would shatter the DNA of most organisms many times over. It does so by maintaining multiple copies of its genome and by possessing extraordinary repair mechanisms that piece DNA back together after it is broken. This ability allows it to survive in environments contaminated by radiation and suggests possibilities for life's resilience in outer space, where cosmic rays are a constant hazard. The existence of extremophiles extends our imagination beyond Earth. If microbes can thrive in boiling springs, frozen glaciers, acid pools, and deep-sea vents, then perhaps they could also live in alien environments. Mars, with its cold deserts and subsurface ice, or the icy moons with hidden oceans beneath their frozen shells, may harbor microbial life. The study of extremophiles has thus become central not only to microbiology but also to astrobiology, guiding our search for life beyond our planet. These remarkable organisms also offer practical benefits. The enzymes of thermophiles are used in industrial processes that require heat stability. The pigments of halophiles find use in food and cosmetics. The metabolic pathways of acidophiles aid in mining. Psychrophiles provide insights into preserving food and understanding how cells can function at low temperatures. Each adaptation that allows microbes to endure extremes carries lessons and applications for science and technology. What unites extremophiles is not a single adaptation, but a general demonstration of life's flexibility. They reveal that biology is not confined to narrow ranges of temperature, pressure, or chemistry. Instead, life is a force that explores every available niche, adapting to conditions that would seem uninhabitable. For microbes, the edges of possibility are simply new frontiers. As we contemplate extremophiles, we are reminded that life is not fragile but resilient. It bends, stretches, and transforms to meet challenges that appear insurmountable. The boiling vent, the frozen glacier, the acid pool, and the salt flat are not lifeless wastelands, but thriving microbial ecosystems. They are testaments to the adaptability of the smallest beings, whose survival strategies ensure that life can endure almost anywhere. In their silent persistence, extremophiles offer both wonder and humility. They show us that our idea of habitability is narrow, shaped by the conditions comfortable to us, but life itself is not bound by those limits. It thrives wherever it can, guided not by comfort, but by possibility. The extremophiles of Earth reveal that life's potential is vast, and that microbes, in their infinite variety, embody that potential more fully than any other form of being. 11. Microbes and climate balance. The air we breathe, the warmth of the seasons, and the cycles of rain and wind that shape the world are not simply the product of physical forces. They are also deeply influenced by the activities of living organisms, especially microbes. Though invisible, microbes are central to the regulation of Earth's climate. Their collective activity mediates the exchange of gases between land, ocean, and atmosphere, influencing temperatures, weather patterns, and the conditions that make life possible. They do this not with intent or design, but through the simple act of living, breathing, metabolizing, reproducing, and yet, when multiplied across trillions upon trillions of cells, their impact on the planet is immense. One of the most significant contributions microbes make to climate balance is their role in the carbon cycle. Plants are often celebrated for capturing carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, but microbes perform a similar and equally vital task. In the oceans, photosynthetic microbes such as cyanobacteria and phytoplankton absorb enormous amounts of carbon dioxide, transforming it into organic matter and releasing oxygen. This uptake is so substantial that marine microbes are responsible for sequestering about half of the carbon captured globally each year. Some of this carbon remains in surface waters, cycling through food webs, while a fraction sinks to the deep ocean when microbial cells die or are consumed. This sinking organic material, known as marine snow, carries carbon away from the atmosphere for centuries or longer, helping stabilize the global climate. On land, soil microbes also play a crucial role. As they decompose organic matter, they release carbon dioxide through respiration. At the same time, certain microbial processes contribute to the formation of stable carbon compounds in soils, locking away carbon in forms that persist for decades or centuries. The balance between microbial release and storage of carbon shapes the capacity of soils to act as carbon sinks. Forest soils, grasslands, and even agricultural fields all depend on microbial activity to determine whether they store carbon or release it back into the air. Beyond carbon, microbes influence other greenhouse gases, notably methane and nitrous oxide. Methane, a gas far more potent than carbon dioxide in trapping heat, is produced primarily by a group of microbes known as methanogens. These archaea live in oxygen-poor environments such as wetlands, rice paddies, and the digestive tracts of ruminant animals like cows and sheep. There, they break down organic matter and release methane as a byproduct. The accumulation of methane in the atmosphere contributes significantly to global warming. Yet other microbes, called methanotrophs, consume methane before it escapes into the air. They oxidize methane into carbon dioxide, which, while still a greenhouse gas, has a lower warming potential. In this way, the balance between methanogens and methanotrophs influences how much methane reaches the atmosphere, affecting the pace of climate change. Nitrous oxide, another potent greenhouse gas, is also linked to microbial activity. Certain bacteria release nitrous oxide during processes such as nitrification and denitrification, both key steps in the nitrogen cycle. These emissions occur naturally in soils and aquatic systems, but are often amplified by human activities, such as the use of synthetic fertilizers. The microbes themselves simply follow their metabolic pathways, but the cumulative effect contributes to the buildup of nitrous oxide in the atmosphere. Because nitrous oxide also depletes the ozone layer, its release highlights how microbial processes, while natural, can intersect with global environmental challenges. Microbes also influence the climate through their role in cloud formation and precipitation. Some bacteria, particularly those found on plants and in soils, produce proteins that encourage the freezing of water droplets at relatively high temperatures. When these bacteria are carried into the atmosphere on dust or aerosols, they can serve as nuclei around which ice crystals form, affecting cloud development and rainfall patterns. Though subtle, this influence links the microbial world to the dynamics of weather and hydrological cycles. The very rain that nourishes forests and fills rivers may, in part, be shaped by the presence of microbes drifting in the air. In the oceans, microbial activity affects not only carbon but also sulfur, another element tied to climate. Certain plankton release a compound known as dimethylsulfoneopropionate, which microbes break down into dimethyl sulfide. When this gas escapes into the atmosphere, it contributes to the formation of aerosols that seed clouds. These clouds, in turn, reflect sunlight and influence Earth's temperature. In this way, the invisible chemistry of marine microbes has tangible consequences for global climate regulation, linking the productivity of the sea to the reflectivity of the sky. Human activity has placed new pressures on these microbial systems. The burning of fossil fuels increases atmospheric carbon dioxide, altering the balance that microbes maintain. Excessive fertilizer use changes nitrogen cycles, boosting emissions of nitrous oxide. Deforestation and land degradation disturb soil microbes, reducing the capacity of soils to store carbon. The warming of oceans affects microbial communities, changing patterns of productivity and reducing the efficiency of the biological pump that sequesters carbon in the deep sea. These disruptions remind us that while microbes regulate the climate, they are also sensitive to changes in their environment. When their balance is disturbed, the entire climate system is affected. Yet microbes also offer hope. By understanding their roles, humans may find ways to harness or support microbial processes to mitigate climate change. For example, protecting wetlands can maintain the balance between methane producers and methane consumers. Restoring soils can enhance microbial carbon storage, turning degraded land into carbon sinks. Encouraging the growth of certain marine microbes may boost carbon sequestration in the oceans. Even in technological fields, scientists are studying microbial pathways that could be applied to bioengineering, creating systems that capture greenhouse gases more efficiently. The relationship between microbes and climate illustrates a profound truth. The stability of Earth's environment depends not only on physical laws, but also on the actions of countless living cells. These cells do not plan or choose. They simply live according to their nature. Yet together, they form a planetary-scale system that moderates temperature, recycles gases, and sustains conditions suitable for life. This balance is delicate, shaped over billions of years. And it reminds us that the invisible is often the most important. As we breathe, we inhale air that carries the signatures of microbial activity from soils, oceans, and wetlands. The concentration of oxygen, the level of carbon dioxide, the presence of trace gases, all are influenced by the work of microbes. The climate in which we live, the seasons we know, and the landscapes we inhabit are supported by their quiet regulation. They are the unseen custodians of the sky, holding balance in the very air that surrounds us. To contemplate microbes and climate is to realize that life itself shapes the environment in which it dwells. The atmosphere is not static but dynamic, maintained by the activity of trillions of invisible beings. In their persistence, microbes ensure that Earth remains a habitable world. Their work is ongoing, tireless, and essential. Though we do not see them, they are the breath of the planet, the hidden agents that balance warmth and cold, abundance and scarcity. The climate, in all its rhythms, is a reflection of their collective life. 12. Microbes. Beneath the ocean floor. Beneath the rolling waves of the ocean lies a realm that seems silent and empty to human eyes. The seafloor stretches into darkness, covered in layers of sediment that have been slowly deposited over millions of years. For a long time, scientists assumed that little or no life could persist in these deep, buried environments, cut off from sunlight and subjected to immense pressures. Yet, as our ability to explore the ocean depths has grown, a surprising truth has emerged. Even in the most remote sediments beneath the ocean floor, microbes exist in staggering numbers, forming one of the largest ecosystems on Earth. These hidden communities may not be visible, but they are vast, ancient, and vital, reminding us once more that life extends into places we once thought lifeless. The sediments of the deep sea are a record of Earth's history. Layer upon layer of dust, minerals, shells, and organic matter has accumulated, forming a thick blanket that can be hundreds of meters deep. Within these sediments, microbes reside in astonishing abundance. A single cubic centimeter of seafloor mud can contain millions of microbial cells, even thousands of meters below the surface. Unlike the rapidly dividing bacteria of sunlit waters, these deep microbes live slowly. They consume minimal energy, surviving on faint traces of organic matter that have drifted down from above or on chemical reactions with minerals around them. Their lives unfold at a pace so slow that a single cell may divide only once in 100 years, yet their presence is continuous and enduring. One of the most remarkable features of this deep biosphere is its scale. By some estimates, the number of microbes living beneath the ocean floor may rival or even exceed the number living in all the world's soils. Together, they form a vast, hidden biome that extends across the globe, filling sediments from continental margins to the abyssal plains. If we were to add up their biomass, it would represent a significant fraction of all life on Earth. Yet we rarely think of them because they exist so far beyond our daily awareness. These microbes live in silence and darkness, but they are a crucial part of the planet's living fabric. The deep biosphere is not uniform. In some areas, microbes rely on organic matter that sinks from the surface ocean. In others, they harness energy from chemical gradients, using compounds like methane, hydrogen, or sulfates as sources of power. In places where fluids seep upward through cracks in the crust, microbes take advantage of the mineral-rich chemistry, forming communities adapted to these unique conditions. At hydrothermal vents, where superheated water bursts forth, microbes perform chemosynthesis, creating energy without sunlight. In cold seeps, where methane and other hydrocarbons leak slowly from the seafloor, microbes consume these gases, preventing them from escaping into the ocean and atmosphere. In each case, microbes transform barren-seeming sediments into ecosystems humming with unseen activity. These buried microbes play an important role in regulating Earth's systems. By consuming methane and other gases in sediments, they limit the release of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, helping to moderate climate. By cycling sulfur and iron, they alter the chemistry of seawater and sediments, influencing the availability of nutrients. Their activity shapes the mineral composition of rocks and contributes to the slow transformation of Earth's crust. In essence, they are geochemical engineers, invisibly guiding processes that unfold across geological timescales. The survival strategies of these deep-dwelling microbes are extraordinary. Many live in conditions of extreme energy limitation, where food and resources are scarce. To endure, they slow their metabolism to the bare minimum, existing in a state of near dormancy. Some repair their cellular components continuously rather than dividing, ensuring their survival for thousands of years without reproducing often. Others form symbiotic partnerships, sharing metabolites within tightly knit communities. In these buried sediments, cooperation can be as important as competition, for survival depends on making the most of every available resource. The resilience of microbes beneath the ocean floor challenges our definitions of habitability. For much of history, life was thought to require sunlight, abundant nutrients, and moderate conditions. Yet here, in darkness, under immense pressure, and with barely any energy, microbes thrive. Their existence expands the boundaries of where life can persist, suggesting that habitable zones may extend much further than once believed. If life can endure kilometers beneath the seafloor, perhaps it can also persist beneath the icy crusts of other worlds, where hidden oceans and sediments may provide similar conditions. In recent years, scientists have drilled into seafloor sediments to study these communities directly. What they found astonished them. Samples from sediments millions of years old still contained living microbes, slowly metabolizing despite the passage of time. Some appeared to be descendants of lineages that have persisted for tens of millions of years in virtual isolation, surviving in buried environments that have remained stable through epochs of planetary change. The deep biosphere is thus not only vast but also ancient, a living archive of life's endurance across geological ages. Even as we learn more about these hidden worlds, much remains mysterious. Most of the microbes recovered from deep sediments cannot be cultured in laboratories, leaving their lifestyles known only through genetic traces. DNA sequencing has revealed an extraordinary diversity, including entirely new lineages of life that had never been seen before. These discoveries hint at metabolic pathways and survival strategies that may be unlike anything known from surface organisms. The deep biosphere may hold untold biochemical treasures, with implications for understanding life's limits, for medicine, and for technology. The presence of microbes beneath the ocean floor also reminds us of the deep interconnectedness of life. Though they live in isolation, they are linked to the surface through the rain of organic matter and the slow circulation of ocean waters. The balance of the atmosphere, the chemistry of the oceans, and the fertility of marine ecosystems are all influenced by their activity. What happens in the dark depths echoes upward into the light, binding the planet into a single, interconnected system. When we imagine the ocean, we often think of waves, fish, and corals. Yet the greater truth is that the sea extends downward into hidden realms filled with microbial life. These buried communities, invisible and silent, are as much a part of the ocean as the creatures swimming above. They remind us that life is not confined to the obvious or the accessible, but extends into every corner where energy and chemistry permit survival. To reflect on microbes beneath the ocean floor is to acknowledge the persistence of life in its most tenacious form. They endure where sunlight never shines, food is scarce, and where time itself moves slowly. They have outlasted mass extinctions, climate shifts, and tectonic upheavals, quietly continuing their work beneath the seafloor. Their story is not one of spectacle, but of resilience, a reminder that life, once begun, finds ways to persist in even the most unlikely places. In the stillness of the ocean depths, in sediments layered through time, microbes keep their silent vigil. They recycle, they regulate, they endure. They are the hidden inhabitants of Earth's greatest frontier, shaping the planet from beneath, unseen but indispensable. Their world is not separate from ours but part of the same continuum of life, binding the ancient past to the living present, and reminding us that the foundation of existence is often hidden in the smallest, most enduring forms. 13. Symbiosis, microbes and other organisms. From the beginning of life's history, microbes have not existed in isolation. Though many live freely in soil, water, and air, an equally important story unfolds in the partnerships they form with other organisms. These relationships, known as symbioses, are among the most profound drivers of evolution. They blur the boundaries between species, weaving microbes and larger organisms into shared lives where survival and flourishing are linked. Symbiosis is not a rare exception, but a fundamental principle of biology, and microbes are its quiet masters. Through their partnerships with plants, animals, fungi, and even with each other, microbes have shaped the course of evolution and continue to sustain ecosystems today. One of the most well-known examples of symbiosis involves the roots of plants and the bacteria that live within them. Certain microbes, collectively known as rhizobia, enter into relationships with legumes such as beans, peas, and clover. The bacteria infect the plant's roots, creating specialized structures called nodules. Inside these nodules, the bacteria perform the remarkable feat of nitrogen fixation, converting atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia, a form that plants can use to build proteins and DNA. In exchange, the plant provides the bacteria with sugars produced during photosynthesis, as well as a protected home within its tissues. This partnership enriches the soil with nitrogen, benefiting not only the host plant but also neighboring plants that follow. Human agriculture has relied on this relationship for thousands of years, even before its microbial basis was understood. By planting legumes in rotation with other crops, farmers replenish soil fertility, drawing on the hidden labor of rhizobia. Fungi, too, have long histories of symbiosis with microbes. In mycorrhizal associations, fungal filaments weave around or within plant roots, extending their reach into the soil. These fungi help plants absorb water and nutrients, particularly phosphorus, while receiving carbohydrates in return. Yet fungi are not alone in these partnerships. Within the networks of mycorrhizae live diverse bacterial communities that further aid in nutrient exchange and protection from pathogens. This triad of plants, fungi, and bacteria creates a subterranean web of life, sometimes called the wood wide web, through which nutrients and signals move between organisms. Entire forests are linked by these hidden microbial and fungal networks, with trees sharing resources and information through the microscopic threads beneath their roots. Symbiosis is not limited to land. In the oceans, corals owe their very existence to partnerships with microbes. Inside the tissues of corals live photosynthetic algae called zooxanthellae. These tiny partners capture sunlight, producing sugars that fuel the coral's growth and the construction of the reef itself. In return, the corals provide shelter and access to light. Coral reefs, often called the rainforests of the sea, are built upon this microbial partnership, which sustains the vast diversity of life that depends on reef ecosystems. When the partnership is disrupted by stress, such as rising temperatures, corals expel their algae in a process known as bleaching. The collapse of this relationship demonstrates the delicate balance upon which entire ecosystems rest, with microbes at the center. Symbiotic microbes also live within the guts of animals, including humans. These microbial communities, known collectively as the microbiome, help break down food, synthesize vitamins, and regulate immunity. In herbivores such as cows and horses, microbes in the digestive tract allow the animals to extract energy from cellulose, a molecule indigestible on its own. Termites, too, rely on microbial symbionts to break down wood. Without their microbial partners, these animals could not survive on their chosen diets. Even in humans, gut microbes influence health, metabolism, and perhaps even mood and behavior, highlighting how deeply interwoven our lives are with the microbial world inside us. Some symbiotic relationships are so ancient that they became permanent. The mitochondria in our cells, which generate energy, and the chloroplasts in plants, which capture sunlight, are descendants of free-living bacteria that entered into partnerships with early eukaryotic cells billions of years ago. Instead of remaining separate, these bacteria became part of the host cell itself, transferring many of their genes to the host nucleus, but retaining essential functions. This process, known as endosymbiosis, was a turning point in evolution. It enabled the rise of complex cells, multicellular organisms, and eventually, the diversity of life we see today. Every breath we take, powered by mitochondria, and every leaf that grows, fueled by chloroplasts, is a continuation of this ancient microbial partnership. Symbiosis can also take surprising forms. Some microbes provide defense for their hosts, producing compounds that deter predators or kill pathogens. Insects, such as aphids, harbor bacteria that supply essential nutrients missing from their diets. Squids in the ocean host bioluminescent bacteria that help them camouflage against the moonlit surface of the sea. Even lichens, which cover rocks and tree trunks, are partnerships between fungi and photosynthetic microbes, such as algae or cyanobacteria. These collaborations create organisms greater than the sum of their parts, capable of thriving in environments that neither partner could endure alone. Not all symbioses are harmonious. Some microbes establish parasitic relationships, drawing resources from their hosts, while offering little in return. Pathogenic bacteria and viruses can exploit organisms in ways that cause disease, reminding us that symbiosis includes both cooperation and conflict. Yet even in these cases, the interactions shape evolution. Hosts evolve defenses, microbes evolve countermeasures, and over time, relationships can shift toward mutualism or coexistence. The constant dialogue between microbes and their hosts, whether friendly or hostile, is one of the main engines of biological change. The study of symbiosis reveals that individuality in biology is often an illusion. A tree is not only a tree but a consortium of plant cells, fungal partners, bacterial allies, and viral passengers. An animal is not a solitary creature but a walking ecosystem filled with microbes that influence its survival. Even humans, who like to think of themselves as individuals, are in truth composite beings, carrying trillions of microbial partners without whom we could not live. To be alive is, in a fundamental sense, to be in symbiosis. These partnerships also highlight the creativity of evolution. Instead of always competing, organisms often find ways to cooperate, to share resources, and to rely on one another. Microbes, with their vast diversity and adaptability, are the most versatile partners of all. They create connections across species and kingdoms, weaving together the fabric of ecosystems. Forests, reefs, grasslands, and even our own bodies are not collections of isolated organisms, but networks of relationships, many of them microbial at their core. When we reflect on symbiosis, it becomes clear that life's story is not one of solitary struggle, but of shared existence. Microbes teach us that survival often depends on partnership, on the willingness to collaborate, and on the blending of strengths. They remind us that the boundaries between organisms are porous, and that the greatest achievements of evolution, the rise of complex cells, the flourishing of ecosystems, the abundance of life emerged not from isolation but from cooperation. As we walk through a forest, dive into the ocean, or simply breathe, we are surrounded by the fruits of symbiosis. Each leaf, each coral, each heartbeat is supported by microbial partners. Their presence may be hidden, but their influence is everywhere. Microbes and other organisms have evolved together, not apart, and the world we inhabit is the result of their ancient and ongoing partnerships. To see life clearly is to see symbiosis, and to see symbiosis is to see the indispensable role of microbes in shaping the living earth. 14. Microbes and the human body. Every human being is a world unto themselves, a vast landscape made up not only of human cells, but also of trillions of microbial companions. These microbes cover the skin, line the mouth and nose, and most abundantly, fill the intestines. Together, they form what is called the human microbiome, a collective community of bacteria, archaea, fungi, and viruses that lives in and on us. Far from being mere passengers, these microbes are active participants in our health, shaping digestion, immunity, development, and even aspects of our mood and behavior. To understand the human body fully is to recognize that it is not a solitary organism but a symbiotic community, a partnership between human cells and microbial life. The skin, the outer surface of the body, is the first site of this microbial partnership. Every square centimeter of skin hosts thousands of microbes, adapted to the particular conditions of their environment. On oily regions such as the forehead, certain bacteria thrive by consuming sebum, while drier areas such as the forearm harbor different species. These microbes form protective communities that help guard against pathogens by occupying space, consuming available resources, and producing compounds that deter harmful invaders. Even though we may wash or scrub, the microbes return quickly, resilient and persistent. They are part of the skin's ecology, shaping its health and acting as a first line of defense for the body. Within the mouth lies another dense microbial habitat. Here, bacteria colonize teeth, gums, and tongue, forming biofilms that can be both helpful and harmful. Some species contribute to balance, breaking down food particles and maintaining oral health, while others, if allowed to dominate, can lead to cavities or gum disease. Saliva, rich in enzymes and proteins, interacts with these microbes, influencing which species thrive. The oral microbiome does not exist in isolation, for it is linked to the digestive system and, through swallowing, constantly sends microbial communities into the gut. The respiratory tract also hosts microbes, though in smaller numbers compared to the mouth or intestines. The nose, with its moist passages, supports bacteria that filter and interact with incoming air. These microbes may play roles in shaping immune responses, reducing inflammation, or protecting against infections. Even the lungs, once thought sterile, are now recognized as having their own microbial residence, although in much lower density. Each of these communities reflects a balance between human physiology and microbial presence, illustrating the body as an ecosystem of niches, each filled with life. The digestive tract, however, is where the microbial world within us reaches its greatest scale and significance. The human gut is home to trillions of microbes, numbering more than all the stars visible in the night sky. These microbes belong to thousands of species, together forming a community of staggering diversity. They are not evenly distributed but vary along the digestive system. The stomach, with its acidic environment, supports only a few hardy species, while the intestines, especially the colon, teem with microbial life. In this dark, nutrient-rich environment, microbes flourish, breaking down food in ways our own cells cannot. One of their most important roles is the digestion of complex carbohydrates, fibers, and other compounds that escape our own enzymes. Microbes ferment these substances, producing short-chain fatty acids that nourish intestinal cells and provide energy. In doing so, they expand the nutritional value of our diet, allowing us to benefit from foods that would otherwise pass through unused. They also synthesize vitamins such as B12 and K, essential for blood and nerve function, which the human body cannot produce on its own. In essence, the microbiome extends the capabilities of the human genome, adding metabolic functions that are critical to survival. The gut microbiome also shapes the immune system. From infancy, when microbes first colonize the body, they interact with immune cells, teaching them to distinguish between friend and foe. This early education reduces the risk of overreaction, helping prevent allergies and autoimmune diseases. Throughout life, microbes continue to communicate with the immune system, stimulating it to respond appropriately to threats while maintaining tolerance for harmless species. The balance between different microbial populations is crucial. When disturbed, it can contribute to inflammation, infection, or chronic disease. Recent research has revealed that the microbiome may also influence the nervous system. The gut is sometimes called the second brain because it contains a complex network of neurons that interact with the central nervous system. Microbes produce neurotransmitters and other chemical signals that may affect mood, behavior, and cognition. Studies suggest links between the composition of the microbiome and conditions such as anxiety, depression, and even neurological diseases. While much remains to be discovered, it is clear that microbes in the gut are not passive passengers but active participants in the dialogue between body and mind. The microbiome is not fixed but changes throughout life. At birth, microbes are passed from mother to child, seeding the infant's body with its first microbial communities. Breast milk provides not only nutrients for the infant but also prebiotics, special sugars designed to nourish beneficial bacteria. As a child grows, diet, environment, and lifestyle continue to shape the microbiome. Illness, antibiotics, and stress can disrupt it, sometimes temporarily, sometimes with lasting effects. In adulthood, the microbiome tends to stabilize, though it remains dynamic, adapting to dietary shifts, travel, or other changes. In old age, diversity may decline, influencing health in new ways. The microbiome, like any ecosystem, is a living system, constantly responding to its environment. Our microbial companions are not always beneficial. When the balance is disturbed, harmful microbes may take advantage, leading to infection or disease. Clostridium difficile, for example, can flourish in the gut after antibiotics disrupt normal microbial communities, causing severe illness. Pathogens such as Salmonella or E. coli can invade and cause foodborne disease. Yet even in these cases, it is often the disruption of balance, rather than the mere presence of microbes, that causes harm. Health depends on maintaining diversity and stability, allowing beneficial species to dominate and keep potential invaders in check. The realization that the human body is a microbial ecosystem changes how we understand ourselves. We are not solitary beings but composite organisms, shaped by the genes and activities of countless microbial partners. Every meal we eat, every breath we take, every step we make, is influenced by their presence. They help digest our food, train our immune systems, and perhaps even shape our thoughts. We are walking symbioses, living examples of life's interconnectedness. As we continue to learn about the microbiome, new possibilities for health emerge. Probiotics, prebiotics, and dietary interventions aim to support beneficial microbes. Fecal microbiota transplants, once experimental, are now used to restore balance in cases of severe gut infections. Future medicine may focus less on eliminating microbes and more on cultivating healthy communities within us. The idea of health itself expands, from the well-being of the individual to the well-being of the microbial ecosystem that makes the individual possible. In the end, microbes remind us that we are not separate from the world but part of it. Our bodies are landscapes inhabited by invisible communities, as rich and diverse as any forest or coral reef. To live is to live with them, to depend on them, and to be shaped by them. The human body is a human microbial partnership, a living collaboration that has endured for millennia and will continue as long as life persists. The microbiome is our constant companion, our silent partner, and our reminder that even within us, the hidden majority shapes the story of life. 15. Viruses, the smallest players. Among the vast microbial world, there exists a class of entities so small and so peculiar that they challenge our very definition of life. These are the viruses, invisible even to most microscopes, yet abundant beyond imagination. Viruses are not cells, and they cannot grow or reproduce on their own. They are simply packets of genetic material, DNA or RNA, encased in protective shells of protein, sometimes with an outer envelope borrowed from their hosts. And yet, despite their apparent simplicity, viruses are the most numerous biological entities on Earth. They fill every environment, from the surface of oceans to the soil beneath our feet, from the air we breathe to the interior of every living organism. Their influence is immense, not only shaping ecosystems but also guiding the course of evolution itself. Unlike bacteria or fungi, viruses cannot live independently. To replicate, they must invade the cells of other organisms, hijacking their machinery to produce new viral particles. This parasitic strategy means that viruses are intimately connected to their hosts, their existence inseparable from the organisms they infect. Every form of life, from microbes to humans, is host to viruses. Some viruses are harmful, causing disease and death, while others coexist quietly, rarely producing noticeable effects. Many persist in their hosts without causing harm, their presence woven into the complex tapestry of life. In the oceans, viruses are especially abundant. A single liter of seawater may contain more than 100 billion viral particles, most of them infecting bacteria and other microbes. Far from being mere agents of destruction, these viruses play crucial roles in regulating marine ecosystems. By infecting and lysing microbial cells, they release organic matter and nutrients back into the environment, fueling new cycles of growth. This process, known as the viral shunt, ensures that nutrients do not sink unused into the deep ocean, but are instead recycled in surface waters, sustaining the productivity of plankton and the entire marine food web. Without viruses, the balance of ocean life would shift dramatically, and the cycles of carbon and nutrients would falter. Viruses also shape microbial diversity. By killing some cells while sparing others, they prevent any single species from dominating an ecosystem. This constant pressure fosters diversity, allowing multiple lineages to coexist. In this sense, viruses act as regulators, maintaining balance within microbial communities. They are not only destroyers but also sculptors, guiding the flow of life in unseen ways. Over evolutionary timescales, viruses transfer genes between organisms. Through this mechanism, traits spread across lineages, enriching the genetic toolkit available to life. Many bacterial defenses, metabolic pathways, and adaptations bear the imprint of viral contributions. In humans and other animals, viruses are often remembered for the diseases they cause. Influenza, measles, polio, and countless other illnesses have shaped societies and histories. Yet even here, viruses are more than agents of harm. Some viral sequences have become permanently embedded in the genomes of their hosts. In fact, A significant fraction of the human genome consists of remnants of ancient viral infections, passed down through generations. Some of these sequences have even been co-opted by the body, serving useful functions. For example, certain proteins essential to the formation of the placenta in mammals trace their origins to viral genes. What was once an infection became a vital part of reproduction, illustrating the creative power of viruses in evolution. The question of whether viruses are alive remains a subject of debate. They lack metabolism, cannot reproduce on their own, and do not carry out the processes we typically associate with life. Yet they evolve, adapt, and interact with living systems in ways that undeniably influence biology. Some scientists describe them as existing at the edge of life, occupying a space between the living and the non-living. Whether alive or not, their impact is undeniable. They shape genomes, regulate populations, and drive cycles of matter and energy. They may be the smallest players in the microbial world, but their reach is immense. Viruses also remind us of life's resilience and creativity. They are astonishingly diverse, with shapes ranging from simple rods and spheres to complex structures that resemble tiny spacecraft. They can infect not only animals and plants but also bacteria, archaea, and even other viruses. Some lie dormant in their hosts for years, hidden within genomes, before re-emerging when conditions change. Others replicate explosively, producing thousands of new particles in a matter of hours. Each strategy reflects the endless variation of life's possibilities, even at the smallest scale. In ecosystems, viruses act as invisible threads, connecting organisms across space and time. In soils, they infect bacteria that recycle organic matter. In wetlands, they influence the production and consumption of greenhouse gases. In forests, they move between plants, shaping interactions with fungi, insects, and herbivores. Everywhere, they are present, silently orchestrating processes that sustain balance. Their abundance is so great that if all the viruses in the ocean were laid end to end, they would stretch beyond the edge of the observable universe. Such numbers are difficult to imagine, yet they reveal the scale at which viruses operate, shaping the biosphere not through individual action, but through overwhelming presence. For humanity, the relationship with viruses has always been complex. They can bring suffering, yet they also offer tools and insights. Viruses have been used in gene therapy to deliver corrective DNA into human cells. They serve as models for understanding molecular biology, having revealed the workings of replication, transcription, and translation. Even vaccines, which protect us against viral infections, are sometimes built upon harmless versions of viruses themselves. In many ways, viruses are both adversaries and teachers, challenging us but also expanding our knowledge of life. As we look to the future, viruses may even play roles in addressing global challenges. Some researchers explore the use of viruses to control bacterial infections, especially as antibiotic resistance rises. Others investigate viral enzymes that may help in biotechnology or environmental management. The same qualities that make viruses effective invaders, efficiency, precision, adaptability, also make them valuable tools when guided with care. To reflect on viruses is to acknowledge their dual nature. They are destructive and creative, harmful and beneficial, inert and alive. They are reminders that life is not neatly divided into categories but exists along a spectrum of forms and strategies. The microbial world, already diverse, is expanded even further by their presence. They may be the smallest players, but they are indispensable actors in the grand story of life on Earth. In the end, viruses invite us to see beyond appearances. Though invisible and often feared, they are essential to the functioning of ecosystems and the unfolding of evolution. They remind us that even the simplest of forms can carry immense influence. As we breathe, eat, and live, we are surrounded by them, touched by their presence and shaped by their history. Viruses may dwell at the edges of life, but their impact lies at its very center, woven into the fabric of existence itself. 16. Microbes in food and culture. Since the earliest days of human civilization, people have been guided by microbes, often without realizing it. Long before the discovery of bacteria and yeast under microscopes, humans were already harnessing their abilities to transform food and drink. These transformations, mysterious to our ancestors, became traditions, woven into daily life, rituals, and celebrations. To eat bread, sip wine, taste cheese, or share yogurt is to experience the quiet labor of microbes. They are our invisible cooks, our companions in kitchens and cellars, our partners in preserving food and shaping culture. Across centuries and continents, microbes have been essential to nourishment, survival, and identity. One of the most familiar microbial contributions is the making of bread. Yeasts, particularly Saccharomyces cerevisiae, ferment the sugars in flour, releasing carbon dioxide that causes dough to rise. The result is bread that is light, airy, and flavorful. Ancient peoples discovered this process thousands of years ago, likely by accident, when wild yeasts in the air fermented wet grain mixtures left exposed. From those early loaves emerged a tradition that has sustained humanity through millennia. Bread became not only food but also symbol of life, of community, of sharing. In many cultures, bread remains central to rituals of hospitality and faith, its creation inseparable from the unseen activity of microbes. Fermentation, the process by which microbes transform raw ingredients, has been equally important in beverages. Beer and wine, among the oldest prepared drinks, both depend on yeast. In beer, yeasts ferment sugars from grains, producing alcohol and bubbles that give the drink its character. In wine, yeasts consume the sugars of grapes, releasing alcohol and aromas that define each vintage. These practices date back thousands of years, forming the basis of cultural and social traditions across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Each region developed its own methods, flavors, and ceremonies, all rooted in the invisible artistry of microbes. Even today, brewers and winemakers nurture yeast cultures with care, treating them as treasured partners in craft. Cheese is another masterpiece of microbial transformation. When milk is left to curdle, bacteria and fungi take hold, shaping textures, aromas, and flavors. Lactic acid bacteria sour the milk, creating conditions for curd formation, while molds and other microbes contribute to ripening. The diversity of cheeses, soft, hard, sharp, mild, veined, or bloomy, arises from the selection of microbes involved. Roquefort, with its blue veins, owes its character to Penicillium roqueforti. Camembert and Brie are coated with white, velvety molds that soften and enrich the cheese. Parmesan, aged for years, develops complex flavors through slow microbial processes. Every bite of cheese carries the signature of microbes, preserved traditions that turn milk into art. Yogurt and other fermented dairy products tell a similar story. Lactic acid bacteria ferment lactose, the sugar in milk, into lactic acid, which thickens the milk and gives yogurt its tang. In regions where milk is a staple, these microbes provided not only preservation but also improved digestibility. As fermentation breaks down lactose, allowing people to enjoy dairy even if they lack the enzymes to digest it directly. Cultured dairy foods spread across the world, from kefir in the Caucasus to lassi in India, each with its own variations and flavors. These foods became daily staples and symbols of cultural identity, all thanks to microbes. Fermentation also played a vital role in preserving food before refrigeration. Vegetables such as cabbage, cucumbers, and turnips were transformed into sauerkraut, pickles, and kimchi through lactic acid fermentation. The microbes involved not only preserved the food by creating acidic conditions, but also enriched it with vitamins and probiotics. Such foods sustained communities through winters and times of scarcity, turning necessity into culinary tradition. The tang of fermented vegetables became a taste of resilience, a reminder of the ingenuity that microbes made possible. Soy sauce, miso, tempeh, and other fermented products from Asia reflect a similar story of microbial mastery. In these foods, molds such as Aspergillus oryzae break down proteins and starches, producing rich flavors and aromas. Soybeans, which are otherwise difficult to digest, are transformed into nourishing, flavorful staples. These traditions date back centuries, refined through careful observation and practice, passed down from generation to generation. Though the artisans may not have known the names of the microbes they tended, they knew the importance of caring for them, for the cultures were living treasures. In many cultures, fermentation was not only about preservation or flavor, but also about transformation. It symbolized the power of change, the alchemy of life itself. Grape juice became wine, milk became cheese, grain became beer. Ordinary ingredients were turned into extraordinary foods through the invisible work of microbes. This transformation carried spiritual significance as well, woven into rituals and ceremonies. Wine became a sacred drink in ancient and modern faiths alike. Bread a symbol of sustenance and unity. Fermented foods offerings of gratitude and celebration. Microbes, though unseen, were part of these cultural expressions, shaping not only diets but also beliefs. Even in modern times, microbes continue to shape food and culture. Artisanal bakers cherish sourdough starters, communities of wild yeast and bacteria that give bread distinctive flavors. Brewers cultivate unique yeast strains that define regional beers. Cheesemakers tend caves filled with microbial life, guiding ripening processes as carefully as farmers tend fields. The craft of fermentation endures, blending tradition with science, always centered on the partnership between humans and microbes. Beyond food, microbes have influenced medicine through their presence in these traditions. The discovery of penicillin, for instance, arose from a mold that once spoiled food. Fermented foods themselves often provide beneficial bacteria, probiotics that support gut health. Cultures that valued these foods intuitively recognized their benefits, even if the science came later. Today, research continues to explore how fermented foods contribute to health and well-being, renewing appreciation for the microbial partners long embedded in culture. The relationship between microbes, food, and culture reveals a profound truth. Human civilization has always depended on life forms too small to see. Our ancestors may not have known their names, but they knew their power. They nurtured them, passed down recipes and techniques, and celebrated the flavors and sustenance they provided. Microbes turned scarcity into abundance, perishability into preservation, and necessity into art. They shaped cuisines, defined traditions, and sustained societies. To reflect on microbes in food is to see culture itself as a collaboration between humans and the unseen. Each loaf of bread, each glass of wine, each wedge of cheese is a record of partnership. Each meal shared across a table is part of a story that began thousands of years ago, when humans first noticed that dough could rise, that milk could ripen, that vegetables could transform. The microbes have always been there, quiet companions, shaping taste, tradition, and survival. They are as much a part of our culture as the songs we sing or the stories we tell, woven into daily life with every bite and every sip. 17. Microbes in modern science. In the modern age, microbes have become not only silent companions of daily life, but also powerful tools in laboratories, hospitals, and industries around the world. What was once unseen and mysterious is now studied with precision, harnessed with intent, and applied to some of humanity's most pressing challenges. Microbes, small as they are, have opened entire fields of science and technology, from medicine to energy, from agriculture to environmental restoration. They are the engines of biotechnology, the sources of antibiotics, and the living factories of countless useful compounds. In modern science, microbes are not passive subjects of curiosity, but active partners in discovery and innovation. One of the earliest and most profound contributions of microbes to modern science came with the discovery of antibiotics. In 1928, Alexander Fleming observed that a mold, Penicillium notatum, produced a substance that killed or inhibited the growth of many bacteria. This discovery of penicillin marked the beginning of the antibiotic era, revolutionizing medicine. Soon, other antibiotics were found, many of them produced by soil microbes such as Streptomyces. These natural compounds became life-saving tools, transforming once lethal infections into treatable conditions. Microbes thus reshaped the course of human health, their chemical weapons turned into our medicines. Beyond antibiotics, microbes are also sources of vaccines. Some vaccines are made from weakened or inactivated microbes, while others use microbial components to train the immune system. Microbes have therefore not only caused diseases but also helped prevent them, their biology repurposed to protect lives. Advances in genetic engineering have further expanded these possibilities, allowing scientists to use microbes to produce vaccines more efficiently and safely. In recent times, microbial systems have been instrumental in developing vaccines that respond to emerging threats, showing their adaptability as tools of public health. In biotechnology, microbes serve as versatile factories. Bacteria such as Escherichia coli and yeasts such as Saccharomyces cerevisiae are commonly used to produce proteins, enzymes, and hormones. Through genetic engineering, they can be instructed to make substances they never would naturally. For instance, insulin, once extracted from animal pancreases, is now routinely produced by genetically modified bacteria. These microbial factories provide consistent, safe, and abundant supplies of medicines, reducing costs and expanding access. In this way, microbes have been woven into the infrastructure of modern healthcare. The contributions of microbes extend beyond medicine. In agriculture, microbes are used to promote plant growth, protect crops from pests, and restore soil fertility. Biofertilizers rely on nitrogen-fixing bacteria to enrich soils naturally, reducing dependence on synthetic fertilizers. Certain fungi and bacteria act as biocontrol agents, suppressing harmful pathogens and reducing the need for chemical pesticides. By harnessing microbial abilities, farmers can cultivate food in ways that are both productive and sustainable. The invisible helpers in the soil are thus integrated into modern strategies for feeding the world. Microbes also play a role in industry and energy. Some bacteria produce enzymes that break down starches, proteins, and fats, enzymes that are widely used in food processing, textiles, detergents, and biofuels. Yeasts and other microbes ferment plant material into ethanol, providing renewable energy sources. Methanogenic archaea generate methane that can be captured and used as biogas. Scientists are exploring ways to engineer microbes to convert waste into fuels, plastics, or other valuable products, transforming them into living tools for sustainability. These efforts highlight the versatility of microbes as agents of both production and recycling in the modern world. Environmental science also benefits from microbial power. Certain microbes can degrade pollutants, from oil spills to industrial waste. This process, known as bioremediation, relies on microbial metabolism to clean contaminated environments. Bacteria capable of digesting hydrocarbons have been used to help restore ecosystems damaged by oil. Others can metabolize heavy metals, reducing their toxicity. By guiding or stimulating these natural processes, humans can enlist microbes as allies in repairing the damage caused by industrial activity. Their quiet persistence makes them effective custodians of the environment, working invisibly to restore balance. One of the most exciting frontiers in microbial science is synthetic biology. This field seeks not only to harness microbes but to redesign them, programming their genomes to carry out specific tasks. Scientists imagine microbes engineered to produce medicines on demand, to sense and neutralize toxins, or to build new materials. Already, genetically engineered microbes produce biodegradable plastics, flavor compounds, and therapeutic proteins. In the future, synthetic biology may allow microbes to act as living computers, processing information and responding to environmental cues in ways designed by humans. The boundary between natural biology and technology becomes blurred, with microbes at the center of this transformation. Microbes have also been essential to our understanding of life itself. They serve as model organisms, their rapid growth and simplicity, allowing scientists to study fundamental processes. Much of what we know about genetics, molecular biology, and evolution comes from research on bacteria and yeast. The discovery of DNA's structure, the understanding of genetic coding, and the mechanisms of replication and transcription were all advanced by microbial studies. Even modern tools such as CRISPR, a gene editing technology that has revolutionized biology, were discovered in bacteria, where they serve as a defense system against viruses. What began as a microbial survival strategy has become one of the most powerful tools in science. The exploration of space also intersects with microbial science. Microbes are studied to understand how life might survive in extraterrestrial environments, from the vacuum of space to the surfaces of Mars or icy moons. Some microbes endure extreme radiation, dryness, or cold, suggesting that life elsewhere may be possible in forms similar to Earth's extremophiles. Experiments on the International Space Station include microbial cultures, exploring how they grow and adapt in microgravity. In this sense, microbes help us search for life beyond Earth, while also teaching us about the resilience of life on our own planet. In daily life, microbes continue to shape experiences beyond the laboratory. Probiotics and microbiome research highlight their roles in human health. Industrial fermentation creates foods, beverages, and pharmaceuticals. Wastewater treatment relies on microbial communities to clean water for reuse. The breadth of their contributions is staggering, touching nearly every aspect of modern society. What was once hidden in the soil or the ocean has become a cornerstone of medicine, technology, and environmental care. Reflecting on microbes in modern science reveals a partnership that is both practical and profound. They are no longer just the invisible background of ecosystems, but active participants in the advancement of human knowledge and well-being. They provide cures, fuels, and solutions, while also reminding us of the interconnectedness of life. Each discovery deepens our appreciation of their potential, showing that the smallest forms of life hold the keys to some of the greatest challenges of our time. In the end, microbes remind us that progress often arises from the most humble sources. A bacterium in soil, a yeast in bread, a mold on a dish, all contain lessons and powers waiting to be discovered. As science advances, microbes remain both our teachers and our collaborators, guiding us into new frontiers of knowledge and technology. They are proof that the hidden majority of life is not only ancient and enduring, but also endlessly adaptable, ready to help shape the future as much as they have shaped the past. 18. Microbes beyond Earth. When we gaze at the night sky, scattered with stars and planets, it is natural to wonder whether life exists elsewhere. The vastness of the universe suggests possibility, but the form such life might take remains uncertain. While we often imagine alien creatures as complex beings, perhaps with bodies and minds unlike our own, the reality may be quieter and simpler. If life exists beyond Earth, it is most likely microbial, for microbes represent the earliest and most enduring form of life we know. On Earth, microbes appeared billions of years ago, long before animals or plants, and they continue to dominate in numbers and diversity. They thrive in extremes of heat, cold, pressure, and radiation, demonstrating resilience that seems almost limitless. For these reasons, when scientists search for life on other worlds, they search for signs of microbial life, the hidden majority that could be present in distant oceans, soils, or icy crusts. Mars has long been the focus of this search. Once, billions of years ago, Mars was warmer and wetter than it is today. Evidence of ancient rivers, lakes, and perhaps even oceans lies etched on its surface. Where there was water, there may have been life, and microbes would have been the most likely candidates. Even now, although the surface of Mars is cold, dry, and bombarded by radiation, there may be habitable environments beneath the surface. Subsurface ice and potential pockets of liquid water could provide shelter. Methane detected in the Martian atmosphere hints at active processes, possibly geological, but perhaps also microbial. While no direct evidence of life has yet been found, the idea of Martian microbes lingers as one of the most compelling questions in science. Farther from the Sun, the icy moons of the outer solar system offer other intriguing possibilities. Europa, a moon of Jupiter, is covered in a shell of ice that conceals a vast ocean beneath. This ocean, warmed by tidal forces from Jupiter's gravity, may be liquid and stable, perhaps for billions of years. Hydrothermal vents on its seafloor could provide energy and nutrients, much as they do on Earth, where chemosynthetic microbes flourish in darkness. Similarly, Saturn's moon Enceladus hides a subsurface ocean, revealed by plumes of water vapor erupting from cracks in the ice. These plumes contain organic molecules, salts, and hints of hydrothermal activity, all ingredients that could support microbial life. If microbes exist in such oceans, they would live unseen beneath the ice, hidden from telescopes but perhaps detectable through the chemistry of these plumes. Other worlds may also harbor potential habitats. Titan, another moon of Saturn, has lakes and rivers of liquid methane and ethane on its surface, along with a thick atmosphere rich in organic molecules. While this environment is unlike anything on Earth, some scientists speculate that life might adapt to such conditions, using methane as a solvent instead of water. Such life would be microbial, slow and unfamiliar, but still life. On Earth, microbes have shown the ability to adapt to extremes we once thought impossible, so it is not unreasonable to imagine that somewhere else, microbes might have adapted to alien chemistries. Astrobiology, the study of life beyond Earth, draws heavily on the study of extremophiles, the microbes that thrive in boiling hot springs, in frozen glaciers, in acidic pools, or in deep-sea sediments, expand our understanding of what is possible. Each discovery of a microbe in an unlikely niche widens the scope of potential habitats elsewhere. If life can endure in radiation-resistant bacteria, perhaps it can survive the cosmic rays of space. If it can metabolize sulfur in the dark depths of vents, perhaps it can do the same in Europa's ocean. If it can grow slowly in buried sediments with minimal energy, perhaps it can persist beneath Mars's surface. Microbes on Earth are models for life elsewhere, their resilience providing clues for what to seek and where to look. The search for extraterrestrial microbes takes many forms. Spacecraft and rovers explore planetary surfaces, analyzing rocks and soils for signs of past or present life. Telescopes study the atmospheres of distant exoplanets, searching for biosignatures, gases such as oxygen, methane, or combinations that may indicate living processes. Laboratories on Earth simulate alien conditions, testing whether microbes can survive in environments like those of Mars, Europa, or Titan. Each effort is a step toward answering the profound question of whether we are alone. Even as we search outward, microbes remind us of the possibilities closer to home. Experiments have shown that some microbes can survive in the vacuum of space, enduring radiation and extreme cold. Spores of bacteria have persisted on the outside of spacecraft, surviving journeys beyond the atmosphere. Such findings raise the possibility of panspermia, the idea that life could travel between planets, carried by meteors or dust, seeding worlds across the cosmos. If true, life on Earth may share origins with life elsewhere, connected by microbial travelers across the void. The discovery of extraterrestrial microbes, even the faintest trace, would transform our understanding of the universe. It would show that life is not unique to Earth, but a common thread woven into the fabric of existence. It would suggest that wherever conditions allow, life emerges, humble but persistent, microscopic yet immense in implication. Such a discovery would not need grand alien civilizations. A single microbial cell would suffice to demonstrate that the universe is alive in more places than one. Yet, even if we never find microbes beyond Earth, their possibility shapes our view of life. It reminds us that life is resilient, adaptable, and creative. It thrives in niches we once thought barren. It transforms environments, and it persists across billions of years. On Earth, microbes have colonized every environment, from mountaintops to seafloor trenches. If any form of life can exist beyond Earth, it will likely resemble them, small, invisible, and enduring. In contemplating microbes beyond Earth, we see a reflection of our own beginnings. For billions of years, Earth itself was a microbial world, with bacteria, archaea, and early eukaryotes shaping the planet long before animals appeared. To imagine alien microbes is to imagine another world in its youth, alive with cells too small to see but already shaping chemistry, climate, and possibility. These worlds may remain hidden from us, their microbes buried beneath ice or soil, but the thought that they might exist connects us to the larger cosmos. The search for life beyond Earth is, at its core, the search for connection. It is the recognition that microbes, small as they are, may hold the answer to whether life is a universal phenomenon. They are the likely pioneers of any world, the first to appear, the last to endure, the hidden majority not only here, but perhaps everywhere. If we find them, we will find not only life elsewhere, but also kinship, a reminder that the universe is more alive than it seems. 19. The fragile balance of microbial worlds. Though microbes have endured for billions of years, adapting to every imaginable condition on Earth, their worlds are not indestructible. The balance they maintain, cycling nutrients, regulating gases, sustaining plants, and supporting animals, depends on conditions that can be disrupted. Human activity, in its vast scale and rapid pace, has become one of the greatest forces shaping microbial life. Pollution, industrial farming, deforestation, antibiotic overuse, and climate change all alter microbial communities, sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes with dramatic consequences. The hidden majority that once thrived in equilibrium is now facing pressures that reshape ecosystems, disrupt cycles, and even threaten the stability of life-supporting systems. To understand the fragility of microbial worlds is to understand both their resilience and their vulnerability. For though they have survived mass extinctions and planetary upheavals, they are now encountering a force unlike any before: humanity. One of the most profound ways humans affect microbes is through the alteration of soils. Healthy soils teem with microbial diversity, balancing decomposers, nitrogen fixers, fungi, and other life forms. Yet modern agriculture often disrupts this balance. The heavy use of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides simplifies microbial communities, reducing diversity and resilience. Fertilizers provide nitrogen and phosphorus in forms plants can absorb quickly, bypassing the need for microbial recycling. Over time, this dependence weakens the natural microbial processes that build soil fertility, leaving the land more fragile. Pesticides, though aimed at pests, often harm beneficial microbes as well, altering the delicate networks that sustain plant health. In monoculture fields, where one crop is planted season after season, microbial diversity diminishes further. The soil becomes less alive, more vulnerable to erosion, and less capable of storing carbon. In contrast, traditional practices such as crop rotation and composting once nurtured microbial richness, but these have often been set aside in the drive for industrial productivity. Antibiotics, among the greatest achievements of medicine, have also reshaped microbial worlds in unintended ways. Their widespread use in human health, animal husbandry, and even agriculture has accelerated the evolution of resistance. Microbes adapt quickly, passing resistance genes to one another through horizontal gene transfer, creating strains that no longer respond to treatment. In hospitals, resistant bacteria pose serious threats, but the problem extends beyond human health. In soils, rivers, and wastewater, residues of antibiotics create selective pressures, reshaping microbial communities. The very tools once celebrated as triumphs over infection have become drivers of microbial evolution, altering the balance in ways that ripple through ecosystems. Pollution introduces other disturbances. In rivers and oceans, excess nutrients from fertilizers create conditions for massive microbial blooms. Cyanobacteria and algae proliferate rapidly, turning waters green or red, consuming oxygen, and suffocating fish and other life. These dead zones are examples of microbial imbalance, where one group dominates unchecked. Meanwhile, industrial chemicals, plastics, and heavy metals enter soils and waters, selecting for microbes that can tolerate or metabolize them while reducing overall diversity. Some microbes evolve the ability to degrade pollutants, offering hope for bioremediation, but many ecosystems simply lose complexity. The fragility of microbial worlds is revealed when balance gives way to dominance, diversity to uniformity, resilience to collapse. Climate change presents an even broader challenge. Rising temperatures, shifting rainfall patterns, and acidifying oceans all alter microbial activity. In thawing permafrost, ancient organic matter is exposed to microbial decomposition, releasing carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. Wetlands, once stable carbon sinks, may shift into sources of greenhouse gases as warming alters microbial communities. In oceans, warming reduces the efficiency of the biological pump, diminishing the ability of phytoplankton and microbes to sequester carbon. Coral reefs, weakened by bleaching, lose their microbial partners, collapsing into lifeless skeletons. These changes highlight the interconnectedness of microbial worlds with climate systems. As humans alter the climate, microbes respond, and their responses in turn amplify or mitigate the changes. Deforestation also disrupts microbial balance. Forest soils are among the richest microbial habitats, but when trees are removed, soils are exposed to erosion, drying, and nutrient loss. The microbial networks that link roots, fungi, and bacteria unravel, and with them, the fertility of the land declines. The loss of forests also reduces the release of organic matter that feeds microbial communities, diminishing their capacity to recycle nutrients. In tropical regions, where biodiversity is greatest, these losses are particularly severe, erasing microbial diversity that may have taken millions of years to evolve. Even within the human body, microbial balance is fragile. Diet, lifestyle, stress, and medical treatments all influence the microbiome. Diets low in fiber and high in processed foods reduce microbial diversity in the gut, diminishing the production of beneficial compounds that support health. Antibiotic use can disrupt the microbiome, sometimes leading to infections by opportunistic species. Modern environments, with reduced contact with soil, animals, and natural microbial sources, may contribute to immune disorders by limiting the diversity of microbes that train the immune system. The human body, like ecosystems outside, depends on microbial balance, and that balance is increasingly disturbed by modern life. The fragility of microbial worlds is not only a story of loss, but also of interdependence. Microbes are adaptable, often finding ways to endure new conditions. They metabolize pollutants, colonize damaged soils, and evolve to resist antibiotics. Yet these adaptations come with trade-offs, and the systems they once stabilized may shift into new, less hospitable states. Dead zones, resistant infections, collapsing soils, and warming feedbacks are the visible results of invisible imbalances. To restore balance requires not only protecting microbes but also understanding that human well-being is inseparable from theirs. There are signs of hope. Practices such as regenerative agriculture seek to rebuild microbial richness in soils through composting, cover crops, and reduced chemical use. Wastewater treatment plants increasingly harness microbial communities to recycle nutrients and clean water. Conservation of wetlands, forests, and oceans helps preserve the microbial diversity that underpins resilience. In medicine, probiotics, prebiotics, and microbiome therapies aim to restore balance in the human body. These efforts acknowledge that microbes are not enemies to be eradicated, but partners to be nurtured. Reflecting on the fragility of microbial worlds teaches humility. Microbes have survived mass extinctions, asteroid impacts, and ice ages, but they are not immune to the consequences of human actions. Their resilience ensures that life will continue, but the balance they maintain for ecosystems and humanity can be disrupted. The hidden majority does not exist apart from us. It is woven into our air, water, soils, and bodies. When their balance falters, ours does too. To recognize the fragility of microbial worlds is to recognize responsibility. Each action that alters soils, waters, and climates reverberates through microbial communities, shaping cycles that sustain life. To protect them is to protect ourselves, for their health and ours are inseparable. They remind us that the most powerful forces in nature are not always visible, and that balance, once broken, is not easily restored. Yet they also remind us of resilience, for even in disturbance, they seek new equilibria. The task before humanity is not to dominate them, but to live in harmony with them, sustaining the balance that has sustained life for billions of years. 20. Closing reflections. The eternal companions. As we reach the final part of this journey through the world of microbes, it is fitting to pause and consider the enormity of what we have seen. The hidden majority of life, so small that it escapes the naked eye, has emerged as one of the greatest forces shaping our planet. From the first spark of life in ancient seas to the forests and cities of today, microbes have been there, silent but constant. They have created the oxygen we breathe, recycled the nutrients that sustain plants, shaped the climate we live under, and even taken up residence inside our bodies. To speak of Earth without speaking of microbes is to tell only half the story. They are not merely part of the living world, they are its foundation. When we reflect on microbes, one of the most striking truths is their persistence across time. Long before animals evolved, microbes had already filled every niche of the young planet. They formed mats along ancient shorelines, built stromatolites that still stand as fossils, and created the oxygen revolution that transformed Earth's atmosphere. In their diversity, They invented nearly every form of metabolism we know today, from photosynthesis to chemosynthesis, from nitrogen fixation to fermentation. The complex tapestry of life that followed plants, animals, and ultimately humans rests upon the groundwork laid by these first microbial pioneers. They were the architects of habitability, shaping the earth into a place where larger organisms could arise. And yet, they did not fade with the appearance of larger life. Microbes remain abundant, adaptable, and essential. In forests, they whisper beneath the roots, guiding nutrients from soil into trees. In oceans, they drift unseen, capturing sunlight and building the base of the food chain. In the atmosphere, they help form clouds, influencing weather and rain. Within our own bodies, they digest our meals, guard us against disease, and perhaps even influence our thoughts. They are everywhere, surrounding us and living within us, woven into every breath and every heartbeat. Their presence is constant, though unnoticed, like the ground beneath our feet or the air around our faces. Microbes also remind us of life's resilience. They thrive in boiling springs, frozen glaciers, salt deserts, and radioactive wastes. They endure pressures at the bottom of the sea and dryness in the upper atmosphere. They live in places where no plant can grow and no animal can walk. They survive where energy is scarce, dividing only once in centuries. And they persist in forms that can outlast fire, drought, and time itself. This resilience speaks to a truth. Life is not fragile in its essence, though individual lives may be. Life as a whole, embodied most clearly in microbes, bends and adapts, finding ways to endure in conditions that seem impossible. Their adaptability also extends beyond Earth. If life exists elsewhere in the universe, it will likely be microbial, in the icy oceans of Europa or the buried soils of Mars, in the methane lakes of Titan, or the hidden depths of Enceladus. Microbes, or something like them, are the most likely forms to appear. Their example on Earth tells us that life does not require comfort. It requires only possibility. The story of microbes here may be echoed elsewhere, a quiet reminder that we may not be alone. And even if we never find them beyond Earth, the thought itself enlarges our vision of what life means, showing us that the smallest beings carry the greatest promise. But as much as microbes embody resilience, their worlds are also fragile. Human actions have begun to disturb the balances they maintain. In soils, diversity declines under heavy farming. In rivers and oceans, excess nutrients fuel blooms that collapse ecosystems. In our own bodies, diets and medicines shift the microbiome, sometimes weakening our defenses. Climate change alters the rhythms of microbial life, releasing greenhouse gases that accelerate warming. The hidden majority is not immune to our influence, and when their balance falters, the consequences ripple outward. To protect them is to protect ourselves, for our survival depends on their quiet labor. And yet, even here, there is hope. Microbes have always adapted, and with care, we can live in harmony with them. By supporting healthy soils, we restore their richness. By conserving wetlands and forests, we preserve their cycles. By respecting the microbiome within, we nurture our own health. Science continues to reveal new ways to partner with microbes, using them to clean polluted waters, to generate sustainable energy, to produce medicines, and to restore balance. The very beings we once feared as causes of disease may become allies in healing the earth. They are not enemies but companions, waiting for us to recognize the partnership that has always been there. When we contemplate microbes, we are reminded of humility. In a world where humans often think of themselves as dominant, microbes show us that true power lies in persistence and cooperation. They outnumber us, outweigh us, and outlast us. They were here before us and will remain after us, Their world does not depend on ours, but ours depends entirely on theirs. We are guests in a microbial world, participants in cycles we did not create but that sustain us all the same, and we are also reminded of intimacy. Microbes are not distant forces but part of us. They live on our skin, in our lungs, and deep within our gut. They shape our health, our resilience, and even aspects of who we are. The boundary between us and them is blurred, for we are symbiotic beings, walking ecosystems, mosaics of human and microbial life. To care for ourselves is, in part, to care for them, and to recognize that our individuality is shared with countless unseen companions. As this reflection draws to a close, it is clear that microbes are more than background players in the story of life. They are the story. They are the beginning and the continuation, the foundation and the threads that weave the fabric of existence. They are the oxygen in the air, the fertility in the soil, the balance in the climate, the digestion in the gut, the resilience in extremes. They are life's eternal companions, walking with us through every moment. Though unseen, to think of microbes as eternal companions is to see the world differently. The ground beneath the forest becomes alive with their presence. The sea becomes a shimmering web of microbial activity. The air itself becomes a living medium. Even within ourselves, we recognize that we are never alone. Life is not solitary but shared, a grand partnership that began billions of years ago and continues in every moment. And so, as we close this journey into the hidden majority, we carry with us a sense of quiet awe. The microbes will go on, as they always have, weaving life together in ways both humble and profound. They ask nothing, seek no recognition, and yet they give everything, sustaining the world in silence. They are the smallest of beings, but they hold the greatest of truths, that life is interconnected, enduring, and abundant, and that in their presence we find not only the story of microbes but the story of life itself.